because my time is worth so much.
High value time here for flowers. All right, next slide. More worrying for TSM. Is it their third jungler? By the way, we got new news today. I don't know if you've seen this yet, but apparently they don't have Grig or Acadian even listed as substitutes for playoffs.
Nope, it's treats and tactical
That's
only
crazy.
with Spica in the starting and only jungle slot.
So there you go. They are going to go with one jungler, so we'll change that to the slide. And then losing to Glacials, I mean, that's embarrassing, but it was Team Liquid. Team Liquid is undisputedly the best team in the entire league. I think with the new development, for sure, that is crazy because they don't know what to do with the jungle. They've got 3 of them. They threw 2 of them out. They just said Acadian was the full starter, but now he's nowhere to be seen.
TSM played Zed. That's actually inting. Like, I'm sorry, I love watching Zed a lot. I would love to see him be good again. He's not. Like, not in pro play.
Into Glacials, especially.
Like, yeah, into Glacials. They're going to lock him down, just beat him up. It's not a good time. This seems more indicative of just greater problems with the team not being able to find what works. This is way more concerning to me.
Yeah, we don't know what's going on inside, but it's crazy. Next slide. More likely CLG make the finals. I think that's pretty likely, actually. Or CLG get knocked out in quarterfinals. Oh, I think that is for sure more likely. I think CLG have actually looked really, really good. They're so much more consistent now. Their draft improved a lot. I don't know what went on behind the scenes, but it seems so much better recently. And I think that they really take team play to heart more than a lot of the other teams.
Yeah, CLG making finals versus knocked out in quarters. So in quarters, they're up against Optic.
They have to lose to Optic.
Yeah, they're up against Optic, and I don't think Optic has been looking that hot in the last part of the split. I think they definitely looked better early on. And
what about the Big Dokes?
On a downhill.
Oh.
All right, despite Big Dokes dunking on some people, I still think CLG are looking better. And then when you also look at the fact that if CLG wins their quarterfinal, then it's Team Liquid who gets to pick whoever wins out of the quarterfinals as their opponent, right? If I'm Team Liquid, I would much rather play against TSM or Clutch than I would against CLG, which means then CLG plays against Cloud9, which I think is an easier opponent than Team Liquid. So they've got a path to get to those finals. I'm saying this is more likely. I agree with you.
All right, next slide. Which organization will come back stronger? FLICKR, 100 Thieves, or Golden Guardians? I think I already know my answer.
All right, what's your answer?
I think 100 Thieves, because 100 Thieves have put a lot of effort into their organization.
Yeah.
They messed it up. They know that they messed it up, and they've already been tweeting about they want to make big changes. They're not done yet. So I have faith that they will make big, and this time more positive changes to the roster, because it does feel like this is one of the most driven organizations. They've definitely made a lot of mistakes, though, so I was between them and Golden Guardians for me.
See, I'm going to go with 100 Thieves because if I don't, I'm going to get angry text messages from my mom. And also because I agree with you in general that I think this is a team that shows that they're on the right track when you look at how they're approaching things and addressing the problems that the team has moving forward. And especially ever since Amazing came in, it just sort of feels like the team has a better environment in general for working together. So that to me looks like a recipe for being stronger. We're going with that in the middle. All right, Mom.
All right, next slide. What should Dhokla change his name to? Big Dokes?
Big Dokes.
Or Dhokla? I came up with Big Dokes, by the way, in the Caster Lounge.
I remember you screaming Big Dokes in the first game. Y'all weren't there, but in Caster Lounge during the first game when Optic were up against Cloud9, all of Optic is losing, Dokla's popping off, and every time the guy gets a kill, Kobe's just yelling, Big Dokes! Big Dokes going in!
It's because Dhokla, he barely ever got any ganks for himself. You know, the team doesn't play around him. They often leave him on an island in their top lane. So when you see him pop off, you're like, oh, good for you, let's get it.
Well, hey, your enthusiastic support of his popping off in the top lane leads me to go with that. I'm picking Big Dokes.
All right, Big Dokes is the winner. That is going to do it for us, I believe. Last slide. Yep, thank you very much. If you want to go check out some more League of Legends or TFT information, then go to u.gg and give them a visit for us.
And if you want to check out more League of Legends in general, don't miss the quarterfinals this weekend. It's TSM versus Clutch Gaming first, and then CLG versus Optic going up second. Don't you miss it.
Thank you.
Yesterday, Clutch delivered an upset that got fans roaring. We'll see if Optic Gaming can do the same as they aim to take down the number 3 seed in Counter Logic Gaming. BioFrost, MVP candidate, making his way to the stage not too long ago. We'll see how CLG performs in a playoffs berth. It's been quite a bit since they've been able to put something up in the postseason. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the LCS Countdown, where for 30 minutes we hear from internet sensation Scott the PA and hear the history of one of North America's oldest organizations until the timer reaches 0 and we jump into Champion Select. Today, we've got Counter Logic Gaming facing off against Optic Gaming in the journey for the final spot in Detroit. Now, the winner looks to join the likes of Clutch, who once again took out TSM in their quest for the title. What?
What? They've done it again, Mark.
Unbelievable.
They didn't. They knocked them out of playoffs, so now they're 1-6 versus playoff teams, right?
Yes, the stat record.
Who could have seen this coming? Nobody.
Nobody
saw it
seen that coming. It was a very impressive 3-1 victory for Clutch over TSM just yesterday.
Yeah, I think Clutch deserve a lot of credit. I think they were playing really well, especially as a team. There was so much synergy in their team fights. You know, people sectioning off different areas. In this clip right here, Huni lays down Equalizer. Then there's Lyra with the stolen Braum ultimate, pushing them all against the wall for Damonte to come in, clean up with the Kiana. And huge ults all game.
Just ignore the Sven tumble in there.
But Cody Sun snagged player of the series.
Oh, there's a pentakill here.
While every member really on Clutch had their moments within the series, it did go to him, touting again a very impressive KDA. Did die just a couple times,
Died
so
twice.
unfortunately loses his deathless streak. But still, plays like that, the aggression in the late game carry for Clutch.
I mean, this was a synergy that you guys are talking about and how they use these ultimates to set each other up. It goes the Rumble and the Braum, and then at the very end, the Kai'Sa gets to come in and clean up, which is really cool to see because that's not what we saw out of them in the regular season. So clearly they leveled up.
Yeah, I think that's the interesting part is, like, did they level up or not? Was TSM underperforming? Did they overperform? Because a couple people predicted it. It was Crumbs and Freak.
Yeah.
But they were
Like, wait a second, I'm looking at
We
one
are
right
still
now.
loath to admit
they were
it, but-
underdogs coming in.
Yeah.
But then they actually, I think, proved that they were the better team.
Yeah, I mean, basically, if we replay this series, everyone is convinced Clutch still win. You know,
Right.
the majority
Which
of
means
those
they
matchups.
did not overperform.
Exactly.
All right, fair enough. When it comes to booking a ticket to Detroit, some players lock in the Zillion or the Karma to set up their teammates for success. But then there are the mid laners who rocket jump onto an Akali just to say, I'm helping. Brought to you by State Farm. In his first playoff win, Damonte uses Tristana's Buster Shot to give Bjergsen no room to move during a crucial mid-game fight.
Only at 1,000 HP, does make his way out of this one. Bjergsen burning the rest of the ultimate, but now Damonte wants into this one. The Shroud pushed them back into the squad, and that's the alley-oop they needed.
We're gonna win slowly here. We're gonna win slowly here. Or Dragon. I mean, damn, no are. Damn, no Akali are. They can't. Look here, look here.
Hey, Tanner's popping off.
Got insane.
Oh, nice. Tanner, you're so sexy.
Oh, nice.
That was
Tanner.
so
Yeah.
close to dying, actually. I think Bjergsen could have almost
It
taken
was
that.
close. The pickup by the Skarner ultimate there right at the
Yeah.
end, too, was clutch.
I actually wanted to see Bjergsen's pro view of that because you know he's mashing the shuriken to try and take it
You need the
back.
hand cam. Panicking.
You just see it blinking on screen.
Yeah, it was a pretty gutsy play there. It's been quite some time, though, since we've seen CLG in the postseason. So to put context into all of that, I want to send it over to Pastry Time for a quick history lesson.
Thanks, Dash. Counter Logic Gaming, a name as old as the league itself. While the name may now be ubiquitous within the league, the success hasn't always been the same as their longtime rivals, where TSM were the consistent, sometimes middling, but mostly unchanging entity. CLG struggled to find themselves, forced on a journey of self-discovery, adaptation, and willingness to find their own way. It's the summer of 2015 in Madison Square Garden, where CLG would find their first way against the ever-present TSM. After years of fighting in the LCS, they would finally be given their first title, vindicating its longtime players with a championship. Following their success, CLG would see their championship squad go through an unprecedented rebuild. But the team would not struggle with identity for long, as the second wave of CLG unexpectedly claimed victory again, lighting up Vegas alongside rookies Stixxay and Huhi, beating the former face of their org in the process. The high of a finals appearance in the 2016 mid-season invitational, however, would soon wear off. For years, CLG struggled to recapture their former magic, going through a revolving door of experimentation that led to only failure, consistently coming up short in delivering another lineup that CLG fans could feel was their team. Like a group of monks training high up in the mountainside, the search for the third way of CLG would turn up new questions for each answer they seemingly found, a never-ending search for something perhaps unattainable, trying to fix problems that it felt like they couldn't properly identify. Now, as the next phase of CLG enter playoffs, the squad in black and blue are poised for another shot at glory. The third way of CLG seems to have finally arrived. It's some part split pusher, some part aggressive early game, some scaling, some playmaking, something the fans already have pride in. Now, they're just waiting to see if their faith will give them another banner to believe in. Back to you, Dash.
Yeah.
You forgot the most important part of CLG's history, and he's sitting right there.
Where did it all begin?
Pre-LCS doesn't exist. There's no one.
All credit for CLG's success should be directed right here towards the center of the analyst desk. CLG has been such a storied organization, and I do recall that Madison Square Garden victory and how it really did kind of upset the status quo within the league at the time, really just being C9 and TSM to take the big wins. And so finally to have a third organization unseat them was a very cool and special experience.
I think it's still the highest voted Reddit thread of all time in the League of Legends subreddit. It's like
Cool
80,000 or something like that.
I like that. You may have noticed this fella over here on the far end of the desk. Jat has returned. Because before we get into our next quarterfinal, we do have another competition in mind as the four of us dive into some very important Jat stats. Take it away, my friend.
Okay, this one's pretty straightforward. The
highest
Answer A.
The highest KDA in LCS playoff history. That player is in the series today. Who is that
So I
player?
feel like Meteos is the bait.
It's bait.
Is it a
fate,
single
right?
playoff series?
No, all time. Every playoff,
Meteos
every
is
player
the
who's
bait.
ever
I feel like
played in
it's
LCS
Biofrost.
playoffs, all of their games, what is their average KDA? The highest.
Biofrost was only in
On
good.
winning.
Is there a minimum
playoffs.
games to this? There's
No.
no minimum games?
in the series today,
It could
though.
be
I like the
Stixay.
bio.
It could be Stixay as well.
It could be
I
Stixay. I'm
feel
going to go
like
Biofrost.
I'm going to go Bio. I like Bio.
I
Someone
like
else say
Biofrost,
Stixay.
too.
Someone else say Stixay.
Well,
I'm
when
keeping
Crumbs
it-
goes Stixay, then we know he'll be right, and
Yeah.
the three of us will be
All
right.
right, hand the award.
Stixay.
Is Biofrost.
Suck it, Crumbs!
I didn't even feel like I was going to be right. You're like, oh, you should split your answers. No, that's the right answer. I'm not changing it.
All right, okay.
Yeah, Biofrost. He was on TSM all those times. He's won a bunch of playoff games.
Yeah.
And he hasn't even been on playoffs since he's been on CLG, so no way to take that KDA.
I did Bio because I know he's undefeated in best of 5 still.
There you go.
Yeah.
Meteos was the bait. I think he's like fourth highest all time
right.
or something. Second question is the most unique champions played this split. 4 players in this series. So which player in this series has the most unique champion pool?
Is it Ruin or PoE?
Ruin did early on. Ruin for sure did early
He has
on.
11
But
played.
then
I
it got
believe.
relegated to just tons of cannons.
I think it's Crown.
And
I think it's Crown.
Crown has a fair amount, but he's done so much
Crown,
Azir
TF,
and
Corki,
Corki.
Azir.
I'll
but
take
he-
the
he buzzed-
Ruin one
So,
so that one
yeah,
person
you
has
go
to
Ruin.
Crown
I'll go
or
Ruin.
You're
PoE.
going Crown?
It's Crown or PoE.
I would go
I'll do
PoE
like
then.
a
I'd go
joint
PoE.
popsicle, both ends.
Okay.
So you did
Watch,
Crown
it's going to be Biofrost.
So Kobe, have you actually said an answer or just listened to other
Ruin.
people say it?
I'm going Ruin.
Okay, it is Ruin.
Yeah, okay.
Are you just listening to other people's guesses?
I'm
and walking
actually,
away?
I think I'm actually the winningest Jat Stats.
Wow, well,
No,
now,
It's a Zale.
do you have
It's
any
a Zale.
evidence to support that?
I got them
said
all
11.
last time, and I got them all this time.
I said 11. I said the number even.
Wow.
Okay,
Let's
final
see.
question,
Okay.
multiple choice. Which CLG player has the most kills per game
Me.
in CLG playoff history? Pobelter, Stixay, Doublelift, or Huhi?
Not who.
Most kills per game.
In CLG playoff history.
Playoff history.
I think
Pobelter-
it's Pobelter.
Pobelter has some
so,
insane
Yeah, because
ones.
remember in Madison Square, his Victor
Victor,
was
yeah.
popping off. I'm going Victor or Pobelter.
Yeah. It's per game, too. Yeah,
All right,
I'm gonna-
I trust the confidence.
I'm going
Stixay was really
Pobelter.
That was said with such
I'm gonna
confidence.
say Stixay though.
Wow, okay,
Pobelter.
I'll go with Pobelter.
Oh, Mark's wrong. Everyone else is right. This is a funny one because Pobelter only played 6 games in all of CLG playoff history. Won all 6 of them.
And it was that summer.
That's
And
why I
that's
said. That's why I said per game is
per
the,
game.
is the
That's
key
the
part.
trick.
it
Yeah,
is.
otherwise
See,
it's
100%.
Stixay.
Well
Stixay
done.
has the most total kills.
You and Azale. You and Azale.
All right.
Yeah.
I like that the takeaway, though, is that, well, Mark is wrong.
Everyone else is right. That's the most
I
important
just had to do something different than the four. We can't all be unanimous ever.
Okay, fair enough.
That's true. We have to have a loser.
We must. Thank you so much, Jat. The LCS recently announced that Detroit local Jax Anderson will be performing live at the finals opening ceremony. To learn more, check out the article at lulesports.com. All teams that win this weekend will compete in Detroit one way or another, so pick up your tickets for the summer finals, brought to you by Rocket Mortgage, and we'll see you at the Little Caesars Arena August 24th and 25th. We do have to take a quick break, but when we come back, we'll dive into our quarterfinal matchup between CLG and Optic. Then later on, we hear from the new internet sensation PA, Scott, as he does a playoff breakdown.
Oh, sneak peek right
Don't
there.
you go anywhere. You will not want to miss it.
I thought you were supposed to
Look at that.
When you're chasing greatness, just remember, it's not about what you say. It's about what you do.
The crew of the Morning Star, here and ready to die. Make it quick.
With perfect tempo, a symphony of justice.
Hasagi! You just made a grave mistake. Ross can't save you now, Sona. Hasaki is a really sad choice of last words. Malphite, what a loyal dog you are. Dogs die every day.
I'll give you to the count of time's up, done. See ya.
it feels really good for me that we were able to make it to playoffs because last split was the first time I ever missed playoffs. And so on a personal level, I wasn't really happy with that. It's disappointed in myself. And so I've really just been doing my best to help the team in any way that I can, whether it's just being a better jungler, trying to help out other people if they're struggling, also just trying to keep the atmosphere as good as I can. So I don't really take credit for us getting to playoffs. I think that everyone did a really good job.
Welcome back to the LCS Countdown, where Game 1 of CLG versus Optic is gearing up in not too long. Just heard from Meteos on what it means for Optic to make their first postseason. For him, it's more of the status quo, right? Only missing it one time in his history. But for the rest of this squad and for the organization, we have to kind of recognize what it means to have just made it here first before actually competing in this best of 5.
I think it's a lot different journey for Meteos, too. Normally, he joins a team, they're in playoffs, he helped carry them, woohoo. But this was a time where, he says, like, I had to work on being a better teammate and helping elevate my team to get to this, playoff position because we did miss it last split. And you have to approach it differently because you failed once. And I think going through a failure can help people improve a lot more.
And it's super exciting for me because you've got a lot of veterans on this team. I mean, it's not just Meteos. You've got Crown, world champion. You've got Era, a veteran of the LCK. And then you've got Big and Dhokla on their first playoffs as well. So helping out your other teammates is actually going to go a long ways to making sure that this team stays afloat.
Yeah, I really like the interviews on stage after they won. You could tell how much it really meant to them. Specifically, Big and Dhokla up on the stage. Dhokla said he just wanted to get back in to practice and play League of Legends immediately after finishing their best of 5.
I love that.
Their games to play more because he wants to perform on that stage. And that's the inspirational stuff, that gives you excitement heading into a match like that.
Without a doubt. For more insight, though, on Optic Gaming, Coach Zabutin is looking beyond this quarterfinal match being just their first best of 5.
After locking the playoff spot, we are very happy, but we know that the work's not done yet, right? It's just one step. So obviously it feels like a milestone for the team, but at the same time, we have more to show and we want to show up strong today. When you switch to BO5, you just need more stamina, and the game, one game as itself is not the whole result. While during the whole season, you fight for a BO1, just a point from the BO1. So I feel like it's more constructed win where you need to be not only good but as well consistent. But I think it didn't shift our training too much because we already play a lot of training scrim game no matter what.
Consistency, momentum, those are two of the big buzzwords that we use when we move into the best of 5s, right? Because it isn't just about getting the first win and exiting the stage. You got to put 3 back-to-back.
Well, that plus the endurance thing that he was talking about. I know oftentimes 4 playoff teams switch from 3 best-of-3 scrim blocks or something like that into 2 best-of-5s. And that even just in scrims, having been through that can be a pretty brutal process when you're getting hammered in scrims and you're playing out the full best-of-5 against an opponent. Getting into that mindset of that's what you're up for this weekend is really important as well.
It is really fulfilling for the players, though, talking to them, and Meteos kind of touched on it, right? Being in playoffs and doing a full best of 5, especially along with Crown, who is used to that style of play, will be kind of right at home.
Now, earlier we heard from Pastry on CLG's history in the LCS, but it's important to remember that Optic's jungler Meteos has been to more than his fair share of LCS postseasons.
I mean, Meteos is one of our most storied players when it comes to being
Doesn't even look like
successful
him.
at playoffs.
I know, right? You remember that face?
But we get to see the 4 stages of Meteos beforehand. Actually, we could have counted 5 because there was a different look before that Cloud9 look, but he has always been a player that seems to find his way onto successful teams no matter what teammates there are.
Right, does he find his way onto successful teams, or does he make the teams that he joins successful? That's one of the discussions.
It's pretty clearly the second one, in my opinion. The Phoenix 1 change, Optic Gaming at this point. I think he's done enough of a track record to show that he is the main component often in these teams.
Yeah, I mean, he's been playing for upwards of 6 years now. We've seen him grow up basically on stage and playing with his teams. Even with taking breaks in between, he still can come back and perform at this level. That is one of the most, exciting and inspirational things there, because it's very hard for a lot of players once they stop playing to be able to come back and get to the same level.
I think adding to the excitement in this matchup is the All-Pro voting, right? Meteos was on our snub list of making the 4th team, the unawarded 4th team, whereas Wiggly did achieve All-Pro status for the first time in his career, and they'll be facing off today.
I mean, he's got a chance to really cement his position in the All-Pro team. If he can take down Wiggly or show him up, it's going to go a long ways in switching the perception that way, because Wiggly, while he had an amazing season, this is going to be his first playoffs. And this is a player that we know was very different in spring, and I worry that a playoff pressure match could actually throw a wrench in his gameplay and not be as consistent as CLG needs him to be.
Yeah, especially going up against Meteos, that is the concern. Wiggly was super proactive. He actually had the highest kills and assists at 15 of any jungler, and so he was really the linchpin to their early game. And Meteos, while less active around his team, a little bit lower jungle proximity, he was a lot better about being efficient with his clears. He was always up in gold and XP, more so than Wiggly. And so if Wiggly is struggling to make things happen on the map, Meteos is going to be there to capitalize that on those gains.
Especially like talking to Meteos, he always has a very good plan for all of the early stages of the game. You know, if this happens, then I'm going to do this, right? This response is what is going to come next. And that's why he is so efficient with his time. He doesn't waste a lot of time deciding between those different options.
Yeah, and so often we talk about consistency, and I think that that's been one of the bright spots for CLG as an entire squad throughout the summer split, is that they've just more consistently performed. And on the side of Optic, where we sometimes see that inconsistency does come from the mid lane in Crown.
He's been a big part of their success, but he's also had some games where he really kind of throws the game. He's had 0-6 0 performances, some bad Zoe ones. He has struggled because he's been asked to do more. He's been stepping up. He's been doing a lot better on hard carry performances, but it has come at the cost of some of the loss of consistency that we associate with Crown. Whereas in the meantime, Power of Evil has been the same rock he's always been. When you look at deaths, Crown is second amongst mid laners at 43. PoE, that's most deaths. PoE is last. He's got the least deaths at 27. And so that's really the concern with these two guys, where Crown has stepped up to be a harder carry threat in himself, but it does lead to him making some riskier decisions where he has gotten punished this split.
And that, to me, is the actual story of this game, in that you have one player that we can look at for Optic being an X factor in Crown, but I think the reality of it is that you have three. You really have three players on Optic, and then there's
the whole
draft
team.
as well.
The whole team.
The whole thing can go either go all the way or just capsize right before anything even happens, because we don't know what to expect from Dhokla. We don't know what to expect out of Crown. And then in the bottom lane, I think Big is one of the players that has been in the most game-winning and game-losing situations for the team. Then you account into the fact that they basically threw away the draft a few weeks ago with the Aatrox forgetfulness, if you will. And now I'm really worried when CLG has been nothing but consistent all season long, except for the last few weeks that are a little bit troubling. Losing that game against the Thieves was a really bad sign, especially because the draft was sus as well.
Yeah, I think that's why we have such a big spotlight on the junglers, and we're going to be tracking where they go early, because Wiggly has been so good in the first 15 minutes for CLG. And is he going to go up and try and camp Dhokla? Is he going to go try and take advantage of the bottom lane? Those are where those X factors really have to step up for Optic.
I do want to explore the bot lane, as you mentioned there, because for CLG, once again, second team, both Stixxay and Biofrost next to each other. Biofrost is in that race for possible MVP award as well. And then, of course, you look on the other side, and yes, you mentioned how Big can be an X factor, win or lose you the game. But him alongside Arrow, they had stepped up in the waning weeks of the regular split.
I mean, that's a lot, like Crown was saying, a lot of the stories. This is the second all-pro team bot lane for CLG going up against Optic bot lane, who has been doing better than they were in the past, but they should still not perform as well as CLG's bot lane. That's how a lot of it feels, but a lot of Optics players were so close to breaking into those all-team ballots.
And Biofrost himself, when we had him on the cooldown, talked about the Optic bottom lane being underrated.
Oh, yes, he did.
And dominating in scrims. And we've even seen it on the LCS stage. They get 2v2 kills in lanes. They had the Draven Leona one. They absolutely steamrolled on bomb. So, it can't happen, like you're saying, for Optic. And they're giving a lot of respect to their opponent.
But I think we're really lucky in that they played last week, just Optic against CLG, and that matchup was super telling, because CLG just blew it wide open from the bottom lane. It was abusing Big that gave so many advantages, and then the game kind of devolved into both teams just running around like headless chickens, but CLG had more dragons, so they ended up winning the game because of their fundamentals being way more sound than what Optic had.
No doubt CLG is the expected victor in this best of five, but ahead of the first best of five on CLG, Weldon talked about what CLG did in the wake of their tiebreaker loss.
we took a day off and everybody kind of like separated, and we came back Tuesday morning to review. And I think that we got all our apologies in for the mistakes that we made. And I think it's really more scrims leading up to the weekend that kind of set the tone for the weekend. And we had a good week of training. So we're pretty confident in what we learned Saturday in our losses, and then also what we trained this week preparing for the Optic match. Well, there's going to be two parts to this advice. When I walk off stage, I think the last thing I'm going to impart to them is that I want them to feel the pressure today and not let that dissuade them from making the play, clutching for the team, doing the all-in. And that's kind of both for their own satisfaction, their own development, and also looking into possible like semifinals and finals. If we actually are victorious today, we need to play under more and more high stakes. And so anytime you're in an elimination match, you have an opportunity to practice playing under pressure. And I really want them to not avoid that pressure and to just accept it and embrace it and make it fire them up.
Taking that moment to acknowledge mistakes from the regular season, then putting that behind you and embracing the pressure of the playoffs. Again, something we've talked about for young players can usually be the obstacle that prevents them from getting to a title. Weldon says dive right into it and allow that pressure to drive you towards making the plays.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people have different views on pressure, high pressure situations like that. I love getting excited for these playoffs, you know, when you get to go up on stage and make one.
I love it, I love it. All right, well, with all these points fresh in our minds, let's go ahead and hear your predictions for the day. We're going to go right down the line. Skara will be joining us following the first game to break things down. So his prediction, you'll see it here. What was that? CLG.
His arch nemesis.
Why don't we give numbers? What happened to the number scores?
You know, you gotta say it.
Out.
Here.
Use your voice.
Respect our audience. They listen to us.
Come on, we gotta
give me your numbers, Scrums.
I'm going CLG 3-2.
All right, CLG 3-2.
Yeah,
so we got a long series on our hands.
It's a 3-2. That doesn't show up.
Kobe, what do you got for me?
I'm going CLG 3-2 as well.
Wow,
I think it is going to be very close, but CLG's consistency that we have already touched on is going to win it out. Mark doesn't think that they're going to win
games. What do you got?
I said 3-0. What does this say?
Whoa!
It's a close game. It's not close. CLG in a playoff situation are so much better on objective control, and oftentimes playoff games play slower.
We've never seen Optic in playoffs. We don't know.
X Factor.
I'm saying over the course of the season, CLG is better. I'm saying over the course of the season, CLG has much better objective control.
Well, it's a sweep here on the desk for CLG, although a couple people think it will be a close series. We have heard your demands, though, at home, and now I am happy to oblige as we bring back PA's Corner with internet sensation Scott. So take it away.
Thank you, Dash. I'm back, and thanks to much love from the producers and from all of you, here's my segment, PA's Corner. Now,
all right. Sorry about this. We got to cut you off here, Scott. We're about to jump into Champion Select, and Champion Select waits for no man. Now, we've got our next quarterfinal match here ready to go. My name is Clayton Captain Flowers Reigns, and I am joined by two of my favorite boys to have on the desk right next to me here, Mr. Joshua Jat Leesman and Isaac Azael Cummings Bentley. Scott, you will be remembered, my friend. We will see you on the other side, but for now, we got a series ahead of us, boys.
Yeah, it's playoffs. Obviously, it's too important. We have to get to it right away. Can't wait for Optic.
Poor Scott.
Playoff game.
One of these days, Scott, you'll get your segment, bud. Just keep at it.
Yep, you gotta be tenacious. Tenacious as these teams that are now heading into battle for the first time here today. Let's see how they want to conduct this draft. CLG gonna go ahead and say Arrow doesn't get to play Draven. Optic are gonna answer AD carry for AD carry and get rid of the Xayah.
Yeah, Draven, pretty big pocket pick there for Arrow. Has been pretty pivotal for him over the years. You know, certainly an aggressive bottom laner that they can use to really look for some of those 2v2 kills that Kobe was talking about.
Yeah, and we'll definitely want to track how much CLG is trying to draft for just 3 winning lanes and think about the composition later. It seemed like that's what they were getting a lot of their wins with towards the end of the split, and then felt like it got a little bit abandoned in their tiebreaker game against Cloud9, where they had a chance to actually secure that playoff bye and lost. So the Draven ban and the Aatrox ban, I think, are getting rid of 2 very powerful early laning champions.
Yeah, and the Aatrox has been such a big pick for Dhokla, right? This really has been his comfort pick. It has been where he's seen a lot of success. Poppy, the other one that most people will mention, but certainly not lane dominant.
Yeah, and if you're CLG, I would be pretty okay letting the Poppy through to Dhokla because it doesn't seem like something that he would dominate the laning phase with, so to speak.
All right, as these bans finish off in the first phase here, Akali, Silas, and Yuumi all going to be joining the ban table here as well. Let's see what Counter Logic Gaming want to start off with. The Corki and the Azir, those mid lane staples, both are still left available.
Yeah, Azir first pick, would be pretty bold. It's interesting to see how much Sejuani has kind of fallen down in priority just in these 2 playoff games.
Yeah.
You know, it had been such a standard first pick, but Power of Evil going to be grabbing this up. This is the most played for Crown, so I do believe it is a bit of a takeaway there from him, as Crown really has been favoring Azir these last couple weeks.
I think especially as we move towards playoffs, the drafts will become even more specialized and tailored to the opponent the team is playing. I think often during the regular split, when you're just going to play each team for one game and then play a second unique team later in the weekend, you don't get to hone in on exactly what you want to do nearly as much. So the Azir here could absolutely be COG saying, okay, let's put a lot of practice into Azir. We know it's going to be one of Crown's big matchups. We're happy with Azir against everything that Crown plays. Could be what something like they're saying, and that would be a reason they would first pick it.
Well, I feel like something you're always going to be prepared to play against on this patch is that Corki that Optic have decided to first pick here for themselves, answering mid for mid, and they're also going to grab their bottom lane AD carry as well as their mid lane AD carry and picking up the Ezreal.
Yeah, it is interesting. You know, the Azir Corki matchup something we've seen a lot of the time. It does feel like Corki usually does run the lane more early on. You do have a bit more of the push there, so priority may be given over to Optic, you know, in exchange for perhaps more potential in the team fights later from this Azir. But Ezreal, again, fairly defensive lane. This already is feeling to me, and obviously the fact that Dhokla hasn't picked yet, that we may see Optic actually looking for more of a topside gameplay. I do think with Ezreal, with Corki, those are not lanes you want to gank. Those are not lanes you want to attack. And they are saving potentially, you know, Dhokla's pick for the counter pick here against Rune. So Optic may be looking to kind of change things up a little bit here and play more heavily around Dhokla in the early stages.
Well, if they're looking to play around the top side of the map, Counter Logic Gaming have just now grabbed themselves the Braum and the Sivir in bottom lane, and we know what Sivir can do when the enemy team does not apply any pressure towards her lane.
Yeah, it's been a while since we've actually seen Braum pick this early in a laning phase, especially before the support for Optic is even locked in. It is something that Biofrost has a lot of career games on. As we mentioned during Countdown, Biofrost actually has the highest KDA in LCS playoff history now that he's back in the playoffs for the first time since 2017.
Yeah, and something we talked about a little bit yesterday in the series as Sivir was pretty big is Braum is so good against Sivir. Sometimes you want to actually just pick it with Sivir to deny it from your opponents. Being able to, you know, block the Boomerang Blade and the Ricochet, you know, can be pretty impactful. So, you know, does give themselves a little bit of a front line for this powerful backline they've already drafted and denies it from Optic.
Well, as Counter Logic Gaming have gone for the mid and bottom lane lock-ins here in the first half of the draft, that leaves Optic to grab themselves a jungler before the second round of the bans come in, which means they can feel confident and safe in banning out some more junglers, pinch that pool down a little bit more. You'll see the Sejuani banned away here, first ban in the second phase, as CLG decide they want to get rid of the Tahm Kench, deny that denial potential from the support of Optic Gaming.
Yeah, it does seem like COG is seeing that Optic would want to play more passive bottom lane and at least wants to have the option to collapse down. But I do like what Optic is doing with the jungle ban here. It is, I think, good to get rid of Wiggly's most played champions. You look at what he's played throughout the split. It's most played is Jarvan. Obviously has a lot of Sejuani games as well. Get another ban in there with the Skarner. The next most played he has left would be Trundle, which is normally something you would pick against a Skarner or a Sej, not necessarily a Jarvan. So it'll reach down Wiggly's champion pool a little bit.
Yeah, Silas is also off the table, you know, something that is fairly high priority. So I do think, you know, he is looking more towards some of the early game picks that are left available, things like Rek'Sai, Elise, you know, Xin that he did show as well. But that is perhaps not exactly the sort of game plan that they would have initially wanted to go to.
High cover there for a second, but it's going to be Bard locked in instead here for Optic Gaming. And as you guys were predicting, leaving the last pick open for Dhokla to see what they can do to play around him here this game.
Yeah, the Bard is actually a really nice pick here, I think, paired alongside Ezreal. You do have a fair bit of poke. You can run lanes in that way, but also the fact that Bard loves to roam and Ezreal is so strong in the 1v2, you know, being able to farm safely in that regard does make it quite a powerful pick. It is going to be a blind Jace. I think this is smart from Rune simply because they already have so much late game. You are picking blind into Dhokla. It looks like that is a lane that they would want to gank towards. So pick something early, pick something safe that can't really be abused as heavily. And I think that this is going to be pretty smart, but it also does potentially just set up for a Poppy. Poppy is fine into Jace. That is comfort for Dhokla. And I think that's probably what we will see here.
I agree. It would be a Poppy since Jace is locked in. Rek'Sai is tilting a little bit towards the early game, which isn't too surprising, and the instant lock on the Poppy is not too surprising. As long as Jace has been picked in the top lane, people have considered picking Poppy against it, especially now with the recent buffs that Poppy received on patch 9.14, and a little bit more on 9.15 as well with the movement speed on the W. But if you actually do interrupt Jace's dash, which would be on his Q, he's then grounded for an additional 2 seconds afterwards, which would be very good if Meteos wants to try and get a gank on.
Yeah, I mean, remember the grounding removes your ability to do any follow-up movement abilities whatsoever. That's no flash, that's no additional escape, and that flash rule will apply to not just the Jace, but anybody else on the team that tries to pop one of those dashes inside the steadfast presence. Dhokla can really deny a lot of the teamfight potential from some of these champions.
Yeah, certainly is going to be strong in that area. You know, I do have some concerns, I think, for Optic. You're expecting bot lane to be getting pushed in by Sivir. You're expecting top lane to be, getting pushed in here by Jace. Azir should maybe be kind of giving up some pressure in the early lane phase 2 crown, but it feels like Wiggly is going to have more early game power in the jungle, is going to have more ways to actually invade and get aggressive. And I also feel like he has better lanes even perhaps to gank here. There's not a lot of gank assistance on the side of Optic, so we'll see what Meteos is actually going to be able to get done.
Yeah, I think a lot of it might just be about whether or not Big can make plays on Bard.
Yeah.
Zooming around the map with Magical Journey would be something they kind of have to do, just because if you look at the scaling on the solo lane Azir for Power of Evil or the wave clear of the Sivir, it's going to be a lot of push for COG.
The crowd is cheering, and we're about to hop into Summoner's Rift here for the first time today. CLG and Optic Gaming going head-to-head here in the quarterfinals. And in case you missed what's at stake, remember, neither of these teams have any points from Spring. Neither of them qualified for playoffs. That means whoever loses here doesn't even get to go to the gauntlet.
And especially for CLG, who was 1 win away from securing a playoff bye the entirety of Week 9. The entirety of the final day of Week 9. They lost to 100 Thieves and then lost that tiebreaker to C9. And then Optic actually winning 2 tiebreakers even to make it into playoffs. So COG hasn't been to playoffs in the last 2 years. Optic never been to playoffs. If they lose here as well, their season is over. So tons on the line.
Yeah, it certainly is. And it's been, Optic back-to-back splits, 1 game off making playoffs. 1 game away from a tiebreaker, I believe, last split. And then they actually didn't even get the tiebreaker 9-9 the split before, becoming the first team to ever miss at that 9-9 mark. So Optic has been a struggle for them to get here. And you saw how happy they were after finally qualifying here for playoffs. And we're going to have to see if they can utilize some of that excitement and that energy to perform well here today.
Yeah, Dhokla going to be playing in his first playoff series, Big in his first playoff series. Have Crown a world champion from a couple of years ago, but first playoff series here in North America.
All right, we saw a little bit of an early invade there from CLG towards the red side of the Optic jungle. Didn't turn into much. Optic put down some vision of their own here in the CLG jungle, at least the Krugs. They are going to see that Wiggly has gone over to those Krugs after the red buff start. Not really too uncommon, though, as everybody makes their way into the lanes. No one wanting to tempt anything too extra in the jungle early on here in the first game of the series.
Yeah, it certainly can be, teams taking it a little bit more slowly oftentimes, a little bit more risk averse in the early minutes. It does feel like there's so much on the line and people are sometimes a little bit slow to start as a result. But there is always the potential of something like an early gank here from Meteos if he has an idea of the path that Wiggly will be taking. So he should be able to be the one to kind of make the first move.
Yeah, I want to see how he tracks here. So he's done red Krugs. That means his 3rd camp will give him level 3 because he did the Krug camp. And then because we actually did see the early ward down here, and there wasn't an early gank down bottom, I wouldn't be too surprised if Meteos looked for something down in that direction. But that would be a little bit of a risk if they're already pushed in because there wouldn't be a gank there, but it is what Meteos' early game option is.
Yeah, certainly the case, and we'll have to see what the timing is like. But if you can reset the wave, then maybe it starts to push out and maybe something is there. But the timing is looking much more like it'll be scuttle and they'll continue to clear or even just go back to base. But for now, Wiggly power clearing up towards the top side, looking for that potential 6 camp clear. He could look for something up on the top side, but it's mostly just going to be about playing around vision in these early minutes because there really isn't any super strong lane to gank unless someone is pretty mispositioned.
Crabs have come online now as the junglers are on opposite sides of the map. Makes it pretty easy for them to divvy those up, take one apiece. You can see Wiggly using the Scryer's Blooms there. First the one in his own jungle to find one of the wards placed down by Optic, clear that out, then pop down the Scryers in the enemy jungle as well, just to continue to maintain vision, see what's been taken, what has not. They'll find the Raptor camp there to clear away and just try to take any early lead he can find.
Yeah, I can see not too much happening here, as Azale kind of pointed out to. Both junglers just taking an early recall. Is difficult to gank that mid lane. If anything would happen, it would be around this bottom side, but because Arrow and Big are so pushed up, but they have pretty strong vision control. They just saw Rek'Sai topside, so Big trying to get a very deep ward and get out of there. So pretty well played early on by the Optic bottom lane.
Crown at 200 HP here in the mid lane.
That would be a little risky with no heal as well.
Already choosing to Valk back. I like that decision. Just doesn't want to stick around any longer. Doesn't want to risk anything. You can see Wiggly hanging around just in case Crown did get greedy. Not going to allow himself to be punished like that. But topside, Meteos could be making a play here. Ruin in some trouble. Has to flash away from the combo, but he will escape the gank.
That is pretty key, though, getting the flash this early, especially since Meteos has already recalled, and he can do this Krug camp. So that gives him pretty good timing where he's not losing out on a lot of experience and could still make a return gank, especially if he came through the lane.
Yeah, and even honestly, if he can't get the return gank, this just means Jace can't really bully you under your turret. It's too risky. Unless you know exactly where the jungler is, Poppy gets so much more freedom now in this matchup. And something that we hadn't yet touched on is the fact that this is actually Klepto Jace. So he is just kind of trying to farm off this Poppy. This does lead me to believe it could be more likely where you're doing this build where you actually go lethality and just use it to actually kind of get through lane, then group and poke. But I'm really interested to see what he will be looking to commit to. Conqueror is much more likely to be the hardcore split push style. So I do think we are going to see lethality Jace more for grouping and team fighting.
Yeah, you can tell from the inventory there, he just about bought everything at the dollar store, has 3 different consumables of every different type sitting around. He'll be feeling safe there in the lane for a while. Bottom side, you can see some damage onto the health bars of the CLG members. There's plenty of poke potential when you have an Ezreal and a Bard put together like this. Their minion wave is building up, which means they will have priority over the bottom side. Meteos hanging out down here in this river, looking to see if maybe there's an opportunity to counter gank Wiggly, look for a Drake, or anything else that they could do with that priority.
Yeah, it definitely feels like the teams are trying to feel each other out a little bit in the early game of this playoff series. There were no very aggressive, risky level 2 ganks by Jarvan or Rek'Sai, who are capable of doing the early game ganks. Even though the bottom lane has been pushed kind of this entire time, they haven't incurred too much risk. The Braum Sivir is kind of expected to be pushed in this early. It's not until later that the wave clear would come out. But I think both teams are going to be relatively comfortable with this until one team actually decides to commit for an objective, and we'll see if there's a contest.
Right. Yeah, I think Optic will be pretty happy, though, with how especially the bot lane has gone. The fact that they're going to get a recall. Like, this was actually a 6A recall on 30 CS. They're going to have Arrow going back on 50 CS, so his first buy will be a lot better.
Yeah.
Sheen Tier coming through is going to be feeling really, really good, and now going to be set up very well for the rest of this laning phase. 6A is starting to get some more levels, is starting to get a little bit of AD under his belt, which will allow him to kind of match and wave clear. But, Arrow is at a point where you don't necessarily need the Bard around all the time anymore. So we could see Big starting to look for opportunities to get out of lane and try to affect some other areas of the map.
I mean, Ezreal's one of those champions that is at the top for being able to handle yourself in a 1v2. Just sit 1,000 units away, fire Mystic shots into the creep wave. You'll pick up at least half of them. It's not that big of a deal. You can see Wiggly going over the wall there to start up the Mountain Drake, but decides they don't have enough control over the bottom side of the river right then and there to be able to continue that one, so he'll back away. The bottom side of CLG will rotate up just to grab himself some honey fruit, and you can see Wiggly still looking around for something, if not just a little bit of vision control here in the river. Both junglers are level 6 now, which means we could see some big gank potential coming up here soon.
Yeah, it looked like a zombie ward popped up in the pit as he was actually doing the dragon, so I think a ward actually expired, and he's like, oh, all right, they know I'm doing it, I'm out here. So, getting a little bit more control, but we'll be using this to grab a blue here for Azir.
Yeah, it's actually pretty funny because of Meteos' position. If the zombie ward hadn't have popped up, he would have just continued to do it in vision and likely secured it, because Optic had no way of collapsing where Meteos was in topside, but because it did collapse, it scared him off, because I think that's also a bit of a mindset thing of, hey, we don't need to take risks early if you're COG and Wiggly. They're saying we have PoE and Stixxay, let's wait until we at least hit a 1-item power spike, before making plays.
Yeah, and I think it's really kind of a funny thing to talk about, but it's one of those things where it's like you're playing for the percentages, right?
Yeah.
And sometimes the low percentage play is actually better, it works out, but over time it does not. And when you have the better scaling team, you don't need to take any sort of risky play. If they could collapse and you don't know where they are, why risk it?
Bottom side will continue to see Big and Arrow pushing things up here as mid lane it was Power of Evil who was handed off the blue buff this time around. We saw Wiggly smite to secure the blue buff from the enemy jungle previously. Crown prowling around in the bottom side of the river here with the package. Very important for CLG to play around that every time they hear that audio cue that it's up. And now that first Drake does go over to the side of Optic Gaming.
Yeah, the tempo swap back to Optic's bottom side as it looked like they got enough poke on the bottom side that they had to kind of wait back a turret. So Meteos was able to basically get an efficient clear of his jungle and go down to the Mountain Drake. Azael, this is interesting to me because when we're thinking about scaling, I see Azir, Sivir, very good scaling. But at a certain point, team fighting from Corki, Poppy, Jarvan, also strong. So I want to say COD has slightly better scaling, but they also have picks that have a specific point of fall off, like the Rek'Sai and the Jace. So it's like the top side of their map is strong early, and then their mid and bot lane have kind of the scaling insurance.
Yeah, and I mean, this is one of the things with Sivir is if you get to late stages of the game and you don't have a really strong front line, where Optic certainly does have a stronger front line, it's going to be a Poppy and a full tank Jarvan. You know, if you can't actually safely auto-attack, you don't get any use out of that scaling, where Ezreal is a champion that is always going to be able to have access to, at the very least, get those Qs out as Meteos forces the flash there from Wiggly. So, you know, a lot of it will come down to how can they actually create space, you know, with the soldiers, with the Braum, I think, to get 6A involved in those team fights.
That was a very cautious flash there in the mid lane from Wiggly. I feel like in regular season you wouldn't have seen that flash. They would have just took the 2v2, but again, CLG not wanting to make any big errors here in the first game. Wiggly will go back into the top side of the river and grab himself that Scuttle Crab, but Big is now doing what you guys were talking about. He's roaming around.
Yeah, and it seems like Meteos really scared off Wiggly despite not having all of the backup. That was a warrior completed Rek'Sai versus a Cinder Hulk Jarvan with two people in the mid lane, but it does seem like CLG is in this mindset right now of let's just hold out for the early game. Don't force anything. Even though it's a warrior Halo Blades Rek'Sai, that's exactly the moment where Wiggly would look to go one-shot someone, but they started up the Rift Herald. Feels like this is what they were waiting for since they do have a little bit of a push topside, and it will be difficult for Optic to contest, especially with how much Big got poked.
Lots of summoner spells ready to fire here. CLG has that Rift Herald down to 2,000 HP.
Trouble.
Top side, though, it is ruined. So very close to dead. Having a flash away, but the follow-up is there, and first blood goes over to Meteo.
Oh, that was actually so nicely done, and we'll see if Biofrost can get out. But you know what they actually did there? Jarvan ults right as Poppy is Eing, and you get slammed into the Jarvan wall. So for an instant stun, so Rune actually had his flash, but did not flash quickly enough, so he got fully stunned into the Jarvan Cataclysm wall, then knocked up. And that was a really good CC chain, because I didn't think they were actually going to have enough damage to kill Rune off before the rest of the team could have got over to him.
Yeah, and it also ended up being a little bit of a disjointed play from CLG's side for the first thing they commit on, which is the Rift Herald. Ruin's ending up kind of zoning out Meteos and Dhokla, but he cheats back towards his top lane rather than towards the river, and there's the combo we were just talking about. Cataclysm into E-Stun, into Poppy ult, into the Steadfast Presence, so very difficult for Rune to get out. Does secure first blood with CLG getting the Herald.
And now that Optic has that first blood, they've got themselves the gold lead that's only equivalent to the gold they earned from it. But CLG with the Rift Herald has the opportunity to get so much more. You've still got 90 seconds before the plates fall, which means 90 seconds where Shelly just getting a charge off nets you an extra 320 gold for the plates.
Yeah, and we often see people use it pre-14 minutes because it is that extra 320 gold. There are use cases where you're greeting with it because you actually want to get the first turret, because this is a situation actually where if we look at turret plates across the map, COD hasn't gotten a single plate. So yes, you could get the 320 gold, but what I think they might end up looking for is a spot where they can actually get enough people in a lane so that the Shelly plus the team can actually get them that first turret, since there's been very little turret destruction happening pre-turret plate destruction.
Yeah, and you've definitely got to give some credit, I think, to Dhokla, as well as the bit of pressure that Meteos put on top side, you know, for actually defending all of his plates against this Jace in the 1v1.
Bottom side, Bard ulti, not gonna find much there. Biofrost, Stixxay doing a good job with the fancy feet, keeping themselves alive, but Meteos is coming down here, looking to still make the play happen. Stixxay is gonna be the target there. Meteos disengaging, trying to get himself away. A lot of damage still gonna be coming out. CLG are doing a good job defending this. Ruin comes in, the cavalry has arrived here for both sides. But Optic will get nothing as CLG take first turret top.
Yeah, so far in this trade, it's been a huge win for CLG. They got every plate off that top lane turret before it falls. And then the match TP also prevented the bottom lane turret from falling in. They even get half of the second tier.
Yeah, I mean, Dhokla TP'd away from the Rift Herald there, getting called down for that potential dive. And that means they're going to even lose about half of the health off the tier 2. Did not work out whatsoever, and it didn't even feel like it was very close to working out, honestly, for Optic. It felt like a pretty bumbled dive.
And that's what I want to go back to what Mark said on the analyst desk when they were doing the predictions. He said CLG 3-0 because they have better objective control. He said in a series that was about consistency and things like this, that's what would put CLG ahead of Optic. And there, they played the objective game better. They played for the turret. They used Shelly at the right time, and they were able to defend as well. We'll see if Optic can make anything happen here. Infernal Drake is live, and we know how teams like to fight over these.
Yeah, this is big. I believe Corki has picked up the package as well for this fight. So it does give them that added bit of oomph around this area. Meteos already going through division control. As far as tracking ultimates, there is no J4 ultimate, and Stixxay's Sivir ult will come up a little bit sooner, so could be a very contentious Drake. We'll see how much priority gets put on it versus wave priority from CLG, because Optic just starts it up right away.
Corki package is so deadly in some place like the river. Very easy to cut off escape routes, but it's not even going to be necessary. Optic will secure their second Drake of the game.
Yeah, nicely done there from Optic. And Dragons has been a big strength for CLG. They have taken more Dragons, I believe, than any other team in the league. So, Optic, certainly it feels like changing up that game plan.
Meteos walking right into the front face first! But good lord, man, Big makes sure he keeps his buddy alive and gets him out.
That was a guaranteed kill from the Rek'Sai R if Wiggly chooses to take it, if that Bard ultimate doesn't land from Big. I was about to make the point that Meteos has looked more decisive than Wiggly in this game, especially with just committing straight to the Dragon or committing to the dive bottom lane, whether or not it works. And that was actually a great play by Wiggly to get that rotation and see that Meteos should be going for the Raptors, but because Big comes in with the ultimate, kind of saves Meteos' skin.
And I think so much of that is the veterancy difference between these two players. We've talked about how important they both are for their teams, about how much the junglers set up for everybody else on both squads. But Meteos has all this playoffs experience. He's been here 100 times already. Wiggly's still pretty fresh blood when it comes to the best-of-5 series, and Meteos is able to stay cool and collected.
Yeah, so here this is one more time on the Pro View replay here from Big. Meteos in trouble, hits them both with the ultimate. Very nicely done from him. And you have to be able to pull off those sorts of plays on the Bard to make it a worthwhile pick. Yeah. Taking something like a Braum, at the pro level, these guys are always going to be able to execute on just putting up the shield, staying in front of someone. It's very simple to get value there. Whereas Bard is much more high highs, low lows, so you have to really be able to execute on some strong plays to get the value out of this pick that Biofrost is guaranteed to get out of the Braum.
I say it every time, Bard is one of the few champions in League of Legends that lets you actively troll your teammates if you are bad. So when you get to see a play like that that keeps somebody alive.
Tom Kench too.
Yeah, Bard, Tom Kench, some of these champions can just have amazing saves or question mark pings until everybody's pinger is broken. But right now, Big's doing a good job here so far. He's helped Arrow maintain lane control throughout all the early game. You can see a 20 CS lead there for the Optic 80 carry in the bottom lane because of it. Has the Iceborne Gauntlet online, still stacking that tier. Currently has it at 580 stacks, so somewhere around the early 20-minute-ish mark, we're going to see that one get all the way done. Meteos moving into enemy territory now, stealing away the red buff. He'll pass that one off to Brown.
It is also worth noting that Rune, despite the fact that he is not going Conquer, he is fully committing more to his split push style. This is Black Cleaver straight into a Last Whisper, so it's not even Black Cleaver into Ghostblade or something along those lines, which would be more geared towards the team fight. This is to fight Poppy 1v1, but he hasn't really been that effective in that 1v1 thus far. I mean, he took no turret plates whatsoever in the 1v1. They actually got all 5 top lane from that Rift Herald.
Yeah, he is still applying pressure on the Poppy, which is, I think, what he wants to continue to do. Also did absorb 2 of Meteos' early game ganks, basically most of the early game attention. So I think eventually we'll still probably see the lethality items to come in for team fights, but it does kind of speak to COD's plans of, hey, we're not going to group early with this Jace. He's going to continue to play in the side lanes. We're going to continue this mid lane farm off, really. You can actually see both mid laners have highest farm in the game. 213 for Crown at 18 minutes is massive, but both of them have actually accrued CS bounties because they're above the average CS of the game.
It would be really interesting to see, if you see this Last Whisper style build, geared towards the Poppy, if Optic then just change up the lane assignments and say send Crown to actually match Rune in a side lane, because Corki does love to sit in those side lanes as well, and Last Whisper as well as the Tabby's not going to really get very much value here against a Corki, who is now kind of getting corralled.
And standing still on a ward. There we go.
He's sitting right there, but he's going to face check into Wiggly, and this is a bad place to be. Wiggly goes into the ulti. Crown going to be in some trouble. Shut down there. The CS bounty going over to the side of CLG. Now what else are they able to find? Big's going to drop in. It's a double kill over to Wiggly. They'll see if they can go any further. They will not need to, though. 2 for 0, CLG.
Yeah, Wiggly finally finds that fight he wants to on the Warrior Rek'Sai. You have to kind of question why Crown was sitting so far up the lane when he could have waited for it to crash towards him, especially since he didn't have a jungler shadowing him. But that's a big punish play. Optic tried to collapse to save him and ends up just getting the second death.
I mean, you can see that there's really not a lot of vision here at all for Crown to protect him to actually justify being this far up. And he does save the Valkyrie, so after the knockup, as you would have to do, but never going to be able to escape from that ultimate. But it's Optic now trying to rush down the Baron. CLG reset and are going for Infernal.
The CLG reset after that could be a beautiful call by Optic. Sure, CLG was desperate to get that first Infernal Drake, but you forgot about the Baron, and it goes to Optic!
Now that's the kind of sneaky play that can bring you back even after you just had a couple of misfires there. Optic Gaming wearing purple 20 minutes in.
That is absolutely huge for Optic, and we'll see how much gold they can actually get off the map here, as there's, tier 1 mid, tier 1 top. Power of Evil is splitting right now, will take a tower.
Yeah, oftentimes it's not about whether or not you make a mistake, it's how you respond to that mistake. So Optic took those 2 deaths bottom side, turned it into an opportunity of seeding Dragon to go for Baron, but to Azael's point, how are they going to push this one? Because they don't necessarily have advantageous side lane assignments, and they still have to be fearful of the Rek'Sai chasing someone down to the side lane. So if you notice here, they put Dhokla, their tankiest member, in the side lane, and they grouped up with the other 4 to take that one turret. So they'll probably send, if I had to guess, 4 more top lane after Crown picks up this side wave and go to get that next turret.
Well, as you can see, Baron power play currently sitting at 3 digits worth of gold. Killing Baron alone is worth 1,500, 300 for the entire team. So they need to get that number up a little bit. Those are rookie numbers. Need to pump those up here just a little bit, Optic Gaming. We'll see if they can take down the remaining tier 1 there in the top side, as you mentioned. All the tier 2s, of course, still standing here as well. But it is difficult to push into an Azir and a Sivir, Baron buff or not. Meteos, Big, and Arrow still prowling around the mid lane here. Side lanes are set up with Crown and Dhokla. Crown got caught last time, probably going to be a little bit more careful here now. Biofrost doing a good job there, blocking away the True Shot barrage, as Optic will continue trying to maintain control here in the enemy jungle. Baron buff allows you to push up more easily, set up some of these wards. We'll see if they can make any picks happen.
Yeah, that top tier 1 is very, very low. Dhokla likely can just get it here if he wants to commit to it, but being very respectful of Rune will eventually get that, but it's actually Optic now pushing down for that bottom turret, 3 men strong in this bottom area. They have Arrow escorting in the minion wave mid lane, knowing he's very safe as that one-man army, can buff up those minions, and this also does allow them to potentially fight for this red buff that is about to spawn.
Could be a pretty big battle if neither side is willing to concede that red, but Optic have full control over the area right now. Throwing down those control wards into the brushes as they move through. There are still CLG wards here, though. Really have to respect what your opponents can see, what they might be able to see if you can't confirm it's not dark. As Meteos goes in for the red here. See if CLG want to try to contest it. Probably might be a Prey Seeker from Wiggly, but that would be it. Nope. Arrow's going to secure the red, and Optic will continue pushing up the mid lane. 40 seconds left on Baron.
Yeah, in terms of initiation tools, it is difficult for COG to actually push Optic out of their jungle unless they wanted to try an all-in or a very risky play with PoE's Azir, and they're just really not at that state yet. They still want 3 to 4 items on Stixxay's Sivir, or even more 3 to 4 items on PoE's Azir. So really they're just trying to withstand this last 20 seconds of Optic's Baron.
Yeah, and thankfully for them, they really haven't fallen too far behind. They had an initial gold lead. Yeah. I think a lot of this game, the momentum in it, could swing around this next dragon as well. You know, that is another Infernal coming back up, and later into the game, that does become so valuable. So we could see, you know, the first major team fight really breaking out in about a minute or so.
2,270 gold. Final count on the Baron power play, which pretty much means the value of Baron plus 1 extra turret was what Optic got. And if you're CLG and you let a 20-minute Baron slip away under your nose, that's about the best you could ask for.
Yeah, and I think it's actually somewhat expected based on the state of the game when it happened, because when Optic took that Baron, it felt like CLG may have just grabbed the momentum away. It was after Wiggly found 2 kills in the bottom lane, catching Crown, catching Big, and with an Infernal Drake spawning. CLG thought, let's do that, then let's take control of the Baron. So it was really an opportunistic Baron by Optic rather than a total game decider. It really just kind of keeps them in it as they both continue to scale up.
We're back to a pretty even game state here. 25 minutes in, 1 Infernal for both sides. 30 seconds until the third one of the game spawns. Less than 1,000 gold separating the 2 teams. Optic are going to be trying to shove out this mid wave. CLG will respond by attempting to do the same. See who gets control over this bottom side river first to fight over this Infernal Drake. Looks like it's going to be Optic Gaming. Meteor's walking through there, clearing out some of the wards from CLG. Arrow will continue maintaining his position in mid, throw off some Mystic shots, get whatever poke you can. And for CLG, it's so difficult to go too close to Crown or Arrow with these rockets and these bolts flying out.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, look at the itemization here for mid and bot for both sides. You know, 3 items completed here for Arrow, Essence Reaver, Triforce, and that Hex Drinker done for Crown. That is so much poke power with this 40% CDR. Corki, 3-item Ezreal. They are really set up well to fight for this now.
Meteos and Dhokla both trying to go in there. You saw the flag combo as well as the steadfast presence coming out from those 2, wanting to initiate. Not quite able to find what they were looking for. Biofrost doing a good job again with the shield. However, when your Braum is at 1/4 HP, the fight becomes much more difficult.
Yeah, and Braum kind of is the front line for CLG, so their initiation options are even more limited now, which is why Optic is starting up the steal. I don't think he can even try.
No way. Not with the Smite there in the pit. Prey Seeker does 200 damage. Smite's going to hit way harder than that. And Optic will now go back towards the mid lane. That was a real nice Bard ulti, but they're not able to capitalize.
Timing 10 out of 10.
Follow
next
up,
step, not there.
Like a 3.
Didn't know what you got after that. It's like, all right, we got him.
Hey, they shot him with a Mystic shot, all right? There was something. There was something.
Looks really cool, though.
Yeah.
I'll give him that.
Style point is what we like to call them here. Optic Gaming racking up some of those here this game, but one thing they're not managing to build is much of a gold lead. Still 44,000 to 43,000 gold. Baron's up for the second time, and I don't expect CLG to be asleep at the wheel. Brown, he's got package. He should be able to get away from pretty much anything.
So still expecting CLG to at least force out the package, because now Crown can use that to get control over this Baron area. And thinking about the game a little bit bigger picture, games like this oftentimes end up being decided on one major fight.
Yeah.
And it's really difficult to find that fight as a team when you haven't fought the whole game. It's been 27 minutes, and the only 3 kills have been a few picks. Other than that, it's been objective trading. So neither of these teams are in the mindset of, oh yeah, we are just 1 pick away from winning the game. But that's actually where we are right now. If Dhokla gets a pick onto PoE, or if Crown gets caught again, that can lead to a Baron. And now the itemization of the death timers are long enough, that could also decide the game.
And one of the things that we've got to talk about then is what does the ability your team have to actually get those picks, right? And if you look at CLG, their initiation is fairly lackluster, right? You know, you're looking at a potential Stream of Shuffle, you're looking at a Flash on Burrow, or a Flash Ultimate, but
oh, well, here comes your initiation. Wiggly goes into the stasis, keeping himself alive, but now he's going to be slammed right back into the wall. Dokla's making it happen. Big Doke is on the prowl, and they're looking to find even more Power of Evil. Still looking to find the damage on the other side of the fight, able to get the flank. As now Dokla's grabbing the kill onto Stixxay. PoE gets Meteos, but now he has to retreat. It is a 2-for-1 for the side of Optic Gaming.
That was a critical kill, though, because that is the jungler down. It looks like Optic just want to go to the Baron anyway, though. They are starting it up here.
This is a risky play. You could lose this to anything. CLG are not going to go anywhere near the pit, though. Optic will secure this second Baron.
With 4v3 and a Mountain Drake, they're still going to be able to take that down. Big was zoning out. CLG doing their best to try and get a turret back and keep the waves on their side, because the second Baron for Optic has the opportunity to be a lot bigger. Ruin does have flash, but Poppy is quite fast.
You got Bard chasing after you with those tunnels.
I think he gave him the slip.
Oh, they're all running the same way.
Yeah.
Metal Gear Chase! He avoided the guards! He's stealthing his way back home.
They're wasting so much time. They're not even
why is he fighting the wolf?
He's trying to execute because he thought that they were actually going to chase him.
Just get some experience.
All right, wolves do 3 damage. They're not going to kill him this time. Get in that brush. Get back home. Oh, no, he's cosplaying a wolf. And now he's going to go home. Awoo. All right. He gets out of there. Ruin pulls off the secret agent exit. He's going to go home just fine. And CLG have yet another 2.5 minutes, though, to defend against Baron.
Yeah, that's pretty funny. I don't know if is that Solid Snake or is that like some Stormtrooper level defense? You know, which is it?
Solid Snake versus Stormtrooper.
Okay.
One thing I like what Optic did here is Dhokla basically just buffered his Eon Wiggly so the flash doesn't matter. It means post stopwatch, he can't get out. And then a couple really nice shots here. Watch the big ultimate onto Stixxay that doesn't disrupt anyone on Optic. So again, Dhokla just stays in the front line, and he's at such a powerful point on Poppy right now where he has the resistances and the Warmogs, but the penetration hadn't been completed by COG yet. No Last Whisper on Stixxay. Now there is at least a Void Staff on, and oh no, Crown can't get caught again!
Oh, Crown the second time this game! He is too far forward, too far away from his team, and now his screen is all black and white for the next 45 seconds.
I mean, there's no vision on this side of the map. There's one single ward that he dropped in the pit. What are you doing invading this side of the map when you have 4 members top?
I can tell you what he was doing.
Trying to get the
I'm not
red
going to
buff.
say it's a good idea. Yeah, he was going for red, and he thought he could do it. He was wrong.
Yeah, that was pretty troll. But Crown is going to go down. We'll delay the Baron a little bit here for CLG. A big pick for them, as every kill you get during that Baron really does buy you time, and PoE is able to push out bottom wave here.
I think that's absolutely enough to stop Optic from getting any meaningful advantage off of this Baron. The death timer is still ticking. It's 1 minute and 10 seconds. By the time you could actually make it to a bottom tier turret, Baron's going to be gone.
Well, Optic did just at least get the teleport out of Power of Evil. He had to use that to retreat in time, else he was going to be collapsed on. Arrow now getting himself away from the Winter's Bite here in the mid lane. Optic, though, I mean, you got 45 seconds left on your Baron power play. That's up to a whopping 150 gold. Woo! 2 Ho control wards awarded from taking that objective. The Barons have just not been successful for Optic Gaming this time around. For a game that's been played so cautiously by both sides, you've really got to take a little bit of criticism here for Crown, who has been caught twice now at really critical points.
Really stalled out the progression of Optic's map plays. And now, though, they're looking for Wiggly. They do stop him.
He's got a Guardian Angel. He'll try to buy a little bit of time here. Should be able to get away. Only Dhokla and Meteos are there, so not a lot of damage coming through. True Shot Barrage fired off, finds its way onto Stixxay. No Spell Shield means it takes off about 40% of his health. And that is yet another Drake going over to Optic. The next one that spawns will be Elder, and they've got 4 under their belt.
And this really is the critical problem now for CLG, is you're playing against this poke-op, and they don't have any consistent way to engage. So every time an objective spawns, both teams kind of wander over to the objective. Corki and Ezreal just continually shoot out rockets, shoot out Qs. Eventually they connect with something. CLG says, well, I guess we can't fight anymore, but they don't have any way to really reliably immediately start a fight. You know, you're depending upon Braum, Azir, and Rek'Sai, which is not anywhere close to guaranteed engage when you compare to the Bard, the J4, and even this Poppy, who are going to much more reliably be able to find fights.
Yeah, unless Power of Evil shuffles these guys like a Las Vegas blackjack dealer, you're not going to get a whole lot out of your initiation on the side of CLG. You're almost waiting for a mishap from Optic, and you're then able to fire back on after they go too far in. But we've still got some scaling to do for the side of CLG to get to the point where you can just shred through these guys. There is still no armor penetration on Stixxay. You have the Void Staff, at least for Power of Evil, to punch through some of the magic resistance of the Gargoyle Stoneplate and the Adaptive Helm, but those are 2 big old meatballs leading the charge on Optic.
I think at this point, these are the correct items for Stixxay at this point in the game, where he's hoping to get ricochets onto the less armored targets of Optic. And COG, the way they play fights is to kite back, right? Sit behind the Braum shield for as long as possible, hope Wiggly can get some type of all-in that either kills Crown or takes him out of the fight. Because if Crown gets tagged by one Ricochet or a Boomerang Blade, that puts him in kill range for a Rek'Sai assassination. So they can also just look for one random pick because they've gotten them twice onto Crown and then they can go from there. But overall, it is Optic who's in the driver's seat here as far as this Baron that comes up in 47 seconds is concerned.
Well, for Optic Gaming, they've got a good thing going for him in that Crown is at least within 100 meters of another player on the team right now, so he should not be in one of those situations here again anytime soon. You can see everybody regrouping, getting ready to position for this Baron, spawning in 30 seconds, as you said. Dhokla hanging out in the pit, everybody else shoving up the mid wave, maintaining that pressure and that priority as Vision will be placed down, and they'll force CLG to face check into all that poke you were already mentioning earlier, Isaac.
Yeah, and they already kind of won the Vision war here. You can see there's no CLG Vision in this whole area, really, because they poked them out around mid lane when CLG was trying to push. CLG had to reset with that Baron nearly spawning, which gave Optic time to go into the river, to clear out those wards, and this is how they are playing it out. So CLG needs to either hard commit to some sort of an engage or find a way to make Optic engage into them. But without priority around an objective, you really can't do that.
And with Double Mountain, the Baron can go so quickly.
It's just going to melt.
It's probably a Baron that you don't even attempt to contest, which is what COG has opted to do. They're going to take this time to shove out the waves, and we're going to restart this cycle now. Third Baron of the game already at 34 minutes. How much can COG push out these waves before Optic can actually get something to a threatening turret?
And I think now, with the rapid fire and all these items on Crown, you can really just start to group and walk up and start poking around those turrets, and they're looking for PoE now.
This could be really big. Binding coming through. Biofrost going to be soaking some damage here on the front line. Dhokla also going to be absorbing a lot. Stasis comes out. Optic trying to walk away. Their top laner's in some trouble. Warmogs will bring him back up to healthy here in a moment. All they've got to do is drop aggro and regroup.
Double Warmogs is really huge as far as this push is concerned. They have the poke, and they just need to wait for the Warmogs to come back out. And that's another bit of a chunk of damage on a Stixxay from one rapid-fire cannon Corki auto attack. It's that little war of attrition that Optic is trying to win.
True Shot Barrage won't find its way onto anyone. Dhokla's regeneration was slowed down by a Ricochet, stopping the Warmogs, but once again, it's online. He's healing up, and the front line for Optic is as strong as ever. The push will continue top and mid.
And the wave clear is just so good from CLG, so that is really something that has kind of kept them afloat against all of these Barons. Sivir as well as Azir are fantastic at clearing out these waves, so even with two lanes getting pushed in, Optic has not really been able to threaten these turrets just yet. Arrow coming back from base, though, and they are going to try to more heavily split up their team. It's 2-2, splitting mid and top, with Big essentially roaming back and forth in between. He's a portal away from either side.
Arrow and Meteos trying to put those auto attacks one at a time here into the mid lane tier 3. Can a minion will get off a couple of shots as well, but top side, they drew CLG away long enough to take down the tier 3 turret. You can see Power of Evil trying to summon a replacement. We'll see how long that'll stand, but the name of the game is still just buying time for Counter Logic Gaming.
Yeah, so difficult to push in against.
Oh, there they go. Oh, Wiggly's going in. The flash over the wall to shut down Arrow, and that's the initiation CLG needed. Meteos now on the run, trying to get away. Wiggly's going to continue chasing after this one as Ruin is in hot pursuit. He'll provide the damage. Meteos gets out over the wall, but CLG will not let him away that easily. Bring down the hammer. Wiggly grabs another.
An Elder Dragon is up, but the Baron is still there for Optic, so they have just thrown this game wide open. They're going for inhibs while COG is trying to deny Elder.
If they dive on a PoE, if you kill PoE, you could potentially end the game. There's only one member back here, but I'm not sure if Optic even knows it, so they are backing off, and PoE will be able to hold the line here as the rest of his squad will get the Elder.
CLG with a flash over the wall from Wiggly will secure themselves the Elder Drake. They will hold off the Optic assault.
This game has the recipe for 50 minutes because they've been trading Barons back and forth. The 3-Baron team doesn't have a gold lead, and the team that doesn't have the Drakes just picked up the Elder Dragon. And the way that this last engagement happened was, to me, all Wiggly. PoE was actually resetting towards base when Wiggly saw that opportunity onto Arrow. I think a Braum Q tagged him, which then allowed him to flash and secure the stun, which stops Ezreal from being able to get away from this one. Then he actually just continues to play and helps chase Meteos down with Chilling Smite.
Yeah, Meteos, there's so many slows between this duo. You know, Jay's Q with the slow, as well as another Chilling Smite to slow him down even more. No way for Meteos to really escape. And this is starting to feel somewhat reminiscent of those early weeks of Optic games, where you know it's going to turn into a base race, you know it's going to start turning into a split map. But they won so many games in these difficult to navigate late game situations. You know, started out the season 4-0 really by winning through split push, and I do think that with Crown on Corki, they could orchestrate a similar style of game.
They could, but we also have to keep in mind that Optic has been the ones getting caught in this split push situation. If they had been playing this game cleanly after getting 3 Barons, it would be over. It's been, I think, COG scaling up to these item points where they think, okay, now if Optic tries to brute force a team fight, we can beat them, because it is a 5.5 item Azir and a 5 item Sivir that are very close to just wrecking through Optic. And if you look at Arrow's build, he's got a quite defensive build with the Maw and the Iceborne even before the Luden's Echo. So if you're comparing damage between these backlines, I gotta give the damage edge to COG.
And I mean, it's pretty rare to see a game go to the point where one team gets 3 Barons to begin with, but to get 3 Barons and then not win the game.
Oh, and be down in gold.
And be down in gold, yeah. For those of you who didn't notice the gold graph up on the screen there just a couple moments ago, it's been red, 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 and now we just finally have a little peak of blue coming out as CLG are in a comfortable position for the first time in a long time, pushing up towards the neutral point of the map. They still have to worry about topside, though. Remember, the inhibitor did fall as they took the Elder Drake, so they'll have to deal with that extra pressure here for another couple minutes.
And it's such an interesting game state, because I totally agree that, you know, CLG has more damage potential, the Azir, the Sivir, but Ezreal has so much more range, you know, with all the poke. Corki doesn't even have to be auto-attacking. They have been winning a lot of these fights before the fights even start, just by non-stop Arrow throwing out his ultimate. He's doing this on cooldown, ulting on cooldown, trying to get poke. Corki non-stop looking for that rock poke. You hit 2 or 3 of those spells, they go back to base.
Yeah, and Flowers, as far as COG being in a comfortable position, it's more comfortable than they have been in the past, but I think the game is actually uncomfortable for both sides right now. It's an inhibitor down.
And look at Arrow, he pushed in this top lane.
And max items, so COG is gonna have to match that. They do have teleport on Azir and Stixxay, not on Ruin, which is why Ruin is actually trying to run back out. They might actually have to concede this 4th Baron.
All right, here we go. I would say 3rd time's the charm, but no, let's go for number 4. Optic's almost got a fistful of Barons this game. We'll see what they can do with this one. Yet another Baron buff for Optic Gaming.
Has a team ever gotten 4 Barons and lost? That's something I want to know.
Yeah, I'm not.
Especially in playoffs.
They're collecting the Infinity Barons. You need 5.
But they're all purple. You need like a yellow one and a green one.
Elder Baron.
Yeah, that's the true secret of League of Legends. After you kill 5 of them, the Elder Baron spawns.
You summon the Baron, he fights for your team.
Oh, yeah, you just push him down the lane like Season 1 Poppy. Or no, that was even Beta Poppy. Just shove him down the lane into the inhibitor. But unfortunately, you can't do that, so Optic's gonna have to win the old-fashioned way with this Baron buff here. They still have that top lane inhibitor dead, but it's only for another 30 seconds, so that's gonna have to be re-sieged here soon. They also still have the mid and bottom lane tier 3 turrets to deal with, and this massive Azir that you already mentioned, chat, that has a full 6 items now. He's not getting stronger.
Yeah, and there is just the fleet footwork on Crown for lifesteal, and probably some lifesteal from his runes, and then Arrow doesn't have lifesteal at all. So while they do have Warmogs on the front line for sustain,
he's got Bork. Play the Rune King.
Ah, right. Sorry. The Bork on Ezreal. So it's really just Crown that needs to be very careful not to get poked down by one small Sivir Ricochet or an Azir Soldier, because how much damage is on the Azir and the Sivir right now, that could repel this push, because all the COG has been doing is they've been in this perpetual holding pattern of trying to keep as many inhibitors alive as possible.
The eternal defense of Counter Logic Gaming continues 42 minutes into this game. What a way to start the quarterfinal for one team that's never been here and one team that hasn't been here in a couple of years. For it to come down to one of these games where everything hinges on a single fight. This is a mental taxer right now as the mid lane inhibitor becomes exposed. The bottom lane tier 3 is under siege, and Optic is applying the pressure.
This could be the time where they get it. They actually got enough poke onto Stixxay, I think, to force a reset. And Wiggly doesn't get the flash engage onto Arrow this time. That's the one that stalled it last time.
And that was really one of their main engage tools. Now it's up to PoE pretty much at this point. You know, it's going to be fairly unreliable for Braum to start a fight with an ultimate. At this point, PoE, you're depending on a shuffle or some sort of big Azir play. Otherwise, they're just getting bled out.
And this is the tough macro decision for Optic.
Here we go. Wiggly's onto the back line. Arrow's going to be thrown up into the air, and he is taken out. Stickstay grabbing the kill credit there. They won't chase any further. They recognize there's still more to defend here back in the base. Big going to be in some trouble. Collapsed on now by the rest of CLG. But he's done his job. He took the in-hit, and Crown and Dhokla are looking for the third. If they can get 3, that's so many super minions in the enemy base, but they don't quite have the damage. Ruin's grabbing the kill onto Big, and Optic will back away.
And second Elder is up, so they actually can't afford to just give all their lives away for this. They're actually going to retreat to that Elder, trying to take it away. If CLG gets that, that is that double power buff.
Yeah, and that's the risk that Optic was taking there. They're trying to stick around to get 3 inhibitors.
Oh, they're burning it
but
down.
But they're risking actually dying. The double mountain is trying to burn, but Wiggly could be here for a steal.
Optic does so much damage to the thing, and it is secured by the side of Optic Gaming. That is huge.
That is actually so big, and despite the fact that they were down 2 members, you know, Big drawing members up to that top lane does give his life, but ends up being fairly worthwhile because CLG has to actually chase up there, you know, buying time for Optic to go over to the Elder to rush that down. And now they do have that 4-Dragon Elder. Here it is, straight in onto Arrow. Biofrost, it looks like, just got him with an auto attack, tagged him with that, and they're able to just follow up straight onto him as a Prey Seeker was already on there from Wiggly, so he ults in, and they just all dogpiled in on Ezreal and took him down.
Yeah, and look at that Zonya's Hourglass that Arrow has just picked up. So he actually sold his Lost Chapter, isn't going the Luden's build, which is higher poke, and instead is going this Zonya's over even something like a QSS, because that kind of, to me, says that Optic is not even thinking about full-on team fights. They're like, we're either going to pick or be picked, and then we're going to win with map pressure, because otherwise I feel like that would totally be the wrong choice. I want to see how that ends up playing out for Arrow.
To the wall comes Wiggly.
Where's the
Knocked up
stopwatch?
into the air. Arrow's in some trouble here. Yet again, collapsed by CLG. And Arrow's in the ground. TP comes in, but now it's a lot of trouble for Dhokla. And a double kill over to Stickstay. A TP going back to the base as Power of Evil will attempt to deal with Crown. He gets himself back over the wall, but the inhibitors are down. Crown is still here. CLG is collapsing.
CLG might end the game.
CLG's pushing me.
They have to look out here as the damage goes through, and Crown is taken down.
He's gonna win.
CLG's in the enemy base. Crown is gone. Everybody's gone, and CLG are on the victory march. Meteos will see if there is anything he can do, but that is a full build Sivir. That is a CLG teleport, and that is CLG Nexus turrets evaporating before their eyes. They defended for 46 minutes, and CLG take game 1.
I actually can't believe it. They completely threw the game away at the very end there. You know, Ezreal gets caught, not even using the Zonias. Dhokla TPs into a lost fight while Crown is pushing bot. Just suiciding into that. Like, everything fell apart at the end for them. That should have been their game. Dhokla could have just pushed bot with Crown and they could potentially look for an end.
Has a team ever got 4 Barons and lost?
Yes. How many Barons does it take to beat CLG in playoffs when they're running Azir Sivir?
Well, apparently it's more than 4. CLG.
How many picks onto Crown?
Defense.
How many picks onto Arrow? That was 3 times where the Ezreal got caught while they're trying to set up the split push. The Ezreal!
Yeah.
Who can poke from 1200 range. So it's bad by Optic, and I have to give some credit for CLG for finding those picks. The move speed they have over a long period. So if you consider the Sivir ult and the Jace gate, that's more than enough to close the gap on a shift flash from Ezreal if Optic isn't there to retaliate. So almost like the instant you saw Arrow pick up that Zonias, they think, actually, he's not going to do damage to us. Let's just charge.
Yeah.
Because that's all they had left.
And I mean, it worked, right? Sometimes you just have to run it down mid after the guy and take him out the old-fashioned way. But for more on how CLG pulled that game out of the jaws of death, let's hand it back over to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
You could say that 1, 2, or 10 times more, my friend Captain Flowers. What an impressive comeback victory from CLG to take it out of the jaws of defeat. And welcome to the desk, Scar, to help us break down that crazy opener to a best-of-5.
And that was
a game.
That was a game.
Actual.
Yeah, that's my fair analysis of the game. I was sitting down there watching you guys, and it's like, oh, CLG won.
CLG won.
We just run back here.
This is how it happened right here. Wiggly popping off in his first best-of-5 playoff series here on the LCS stage. Gets the all-important pick onto Arrow.
Yeah, he did it. He did it 2 or 3 times.
You know, I'm starting to think that Ezreal might not be the safest of all carries. That's why people draft him all the time. But every single playoff player that drafts Ezreal always ends up getting caught out so many times, and then Crown had an opportunity to base here. He did not have to do this, but he thought he's going to go down with the Alamo.
Went for the triple M hit.
Ends up losing, and the game's over.
Wasn't the right call. It spells disaster for Optic when they were in control of that game for so long. And this is where I have to make a very peculiar announcement. Following the countdown, Crumbs decided to go ahead and flip-flop his prediction.
Flip-flop alert.
He saw champion select. He saw the first maybe 15, 20 minutes of the game, and he said, guess what, fellas? I'm on the Optic train. There's no way this team loses this series after the display of control that they've put out here on the map today.
Okay. You know, the best part about that is that Optic lost, so now I don't have to back myself into a corner and say, oh, it's a results-based analysis.
That's
because
true.
The thing that really stood out to me was that before this series, we were saying that CLG was going to win based off of improved Baron control and objective control. They dropped the ball completely. Optic Gaming had all the Dragons -1. They had all the Barons, all the Elders, and that was the biggest
Not
thing.
all the Elders.
Well, yeah, the very last one, so they
yeah.
kind of threw the game. So that was a huge deal to me. And then the fact that in the draft, they did not prioritize giving something to Wiggly, like the Jarvan and Sejuani that he had a lot more success with. They let those picks get drafted away and banned. So to me, I felt like Optic came out swinging way more, even though the result was CLG favor.
I don't really mind the fact that the Optic got good Drake control this game. They took Bard to do it. They ended up taking a lane-dominant support. It's a good matchup into Braum so that they could control CLG's bot lane to get the Dragons. And they did a good job. For the most part, CLG flipped to the top side of the map. They dropped their Rift Herald up there. And, you know, that was... You know, it's a fine thing that Optic did to get the Drake control in this game, but I don't think that's always going to happen if CLG focus on getting better matchups in the bot lane.
Well, I think what's very interesting is that this game very much started almost with the team's identities flip-flopped. As you mentioned, Optic, the one with the objective control, the Drake control, and even intelligent calls around where CLG would be putting focus. So much so, following a couple picks in the bot river, Optic securing that first Baron with an intelligent call, knowing that CLG would hard focus the Dragon.
This hurt to see. How many times has this happened for Optic, where they are in a winning position, but individual members get caught out and then everybody else trickles in to lose more?
Let's hear it from the Optic side, though. Following this play, their response.
I have ult, so
okay.
I can knock people out of the fight.
We able to steer
We can make it.
I wanna
Baron? They might focus
I
on
feel like
Drake.
we can pressure Baron.
Hey, let's go.
Right up?
Yeah.
We have Corki TP in
This
fact.
is not it, guys. I can ult him out.
We don't take much damage. I think we can do it.
Let's go.
They don't have wards. They don't have wards.
Yeah.
I'm gonna run straight there.
Okay.
I think Corki TP mid.
Yeah. We need to...
I'll ult whoever comes.
Okay.
If the jungle comes, I'll ult.
They're probably not thinking about it.
And this was such an intelligent Baron call. Like, everyone's focused so hard on the double Infernal that over here you see, I think Dhokla starting the call to go for Baron over here. Super good. We were all debating, we're like, who made the call? Was it Meteos? Was it big?
Yeah.
And then suddenly we all get told it's Dhokla. And it's like, holy shit, this guy carried with the call.
I mean, he's been stepping up. I mean, so let's talk about why they still lost. Right.
It's important to break down.
I talked about in the countdown about Crown has been a liability in some games and how he gets caught out of position and dies. It happened in the play to start that whole situation, which Dhokla salvaged with his shot calling. And then he got caught out of position in a red juggle on a Baron push. And then the third play there in the bot lane, maybe he didn't need to be split from his team again. Like, he was always away from his team when the action was breaking down.
So definitely some criticism can be levied towards Crown in terms of, throwing it away. Again, in keeping with the team's identities all split long. It started with those identities flip-flopped, where Optic was playing more of a CLG style. But it closed in very much the same way we had seen a number of Optic games close throughout the summer split, which was that Optic even with some semblance of control, starts to get a little frantic and crazy around the map, thinking they need to end it in a split push fashion or by opening up the map, and that's where the mistakes come in.
I want to point out that it wasn't just a semblance of control. They had huge control this game.
Yeah, all right,
the
I like
Baron
it.
call, Big did a great job setting up for aggressive bar pick plays. They controlled bot side jungle. They snowballed the Baron power play into like almost an 8-minute, 10-minute power play that secured 4 towers and full control of the game and aggressively allowed them to push inhibs. Like, they were in such a good position.
By all accounts, this is a game that should have been won by Optic at that 20-ish, looking at the 20-minute mark forward.
It hurts to see that with 4 Barons, they were barely able to crack the base. I mean, you got Rapid Fire and the Bar that actually you can use the ultimate to bait a fight, take the turret, and then back off and slowly poke and prod.
Fun fact, this was the first time since summer 2014 that a team has taken 4 Barons in a single playoff game. Who you know? Yeah, thank you for asking, Mark.
Can you tell me who else
I
did
would
that?
love to inform you. The last time this happened was a playoff game between one Dignitas
and
TSM. Where Dignitas secured 4 Barons, and then what did they do, Crumbs?
They backdoored the game with Natus and won the game.
Dignitas lost that game to TSM.
Oh, shit. We won that game.
No, it's right
We
here.
lost the
Dignitas
series.
lost
We
after
lost the
getting
series
4 Barons.
Oh.
That's what it says.
Wait.
That's what I was
I don't
told.
remember that.
Your memory's a little foggy now. All of a
I
sudden.
don't remember that either. That's
Memory's a little foggy.
Uh-oh.
All right, here we go. Real quick, Optic goes to blue side here for game 2. So, Crumbs, as you have now put your backing behind Optic, what do you want to see change now here on blue side to come away with the W this time around?
I think they drafted fine. I really just want to see different playing out of them. The fact that you got so many members getting cut out, the most important carries, when you're running a Poppy Jarvan composition, they cannot be the ones to get picked off. It's up to Arrow and Crown to step it up.
Clean up that execution. Game 1 was a doozy. We'll see if game 2 can deliver when we return for our next bash between CLG and Optic Gaming. Don't go anywhere.
Certainly, it feels like changing up that game plan.
Video's walking right into the Brock's face first. But good lord, man, this is a bad place to be. Wiggly goes into the ulti. Crown gonna be in some trouble. Shut down there. The CS bounty going over to the side of CLG. Now what else are they able to find?
Server. She's caught. Help. I'm looking to Ivy. I need help on server. I need help. I got him.
I don't think so. Watch out. Now there is at least a Void Staff on, and oh no, Crown can't get caught again!
Oh, Crown the second time this game!
45 seconds. Keep going. I need to base and defend top.
Yo, they're TPing top. I'm gonna start.
I'm gonna base and look to defend.
They're double TPing.
I think one more. Okay, I'll base.
To the wall comes Wiggly.
Where's the
Knocked up
stopwatch?
into the air. Arrow's in some trouble here. Yet again collapsed by CLG.
A great product can define the present, but it takes the unprecedented to define the future. To go beyond what's next and change the world of gaming. To make history, break ground, and force the universe to take notice. The world's most powerful and most upgradable gaming laptop with Intel Core processors, the Area 51M, defines the future of gaming.
Oh no, are you okay, Mike?
Yeah, got a pretty big fender bender here.
Don't worry, State Farm's got you covered.
That's great to hear. Robin, what's going on?
Are you sure you're okay?
Yeah, I think so.
We're gonna get you a tow truck, Mike.
Thank you. Real fender bender going on here. Fender bender. Everybody remain calm. No reason to panic.
Go with the one that's here to help life go right. State Farm.
Hello and welcome back here for Game 2 between Optic Gaming and CLG. Optic has side selection here for this second bout, and they have elected to play on the blue side.
And did you know last game Optic killed more dragons than they did players on CLG? More barons than they did players on CLG.
That's a stat.
Still lost. We were talking between the break there, and that is such a difficult game for Optic to recover from, because it feels like they did so much right. They did so many of the things towards winning. And we were looking at some shots of Arrow as they were trying to prep between games, and he looked really tilted after that game. So it's about recovering and using experience to come back stronger in the next game.
Yeah, I think the most frustrating games of League of Legends are the ones that feel like you just can't end for whatever reason. Your teammates keep getting caught. You keep getting, these advantages, and it just never is able to result in a victory, is never able to result in actually closing it out. And they had so many opportunities to close it out, so many different paths to victory, and they know that. And those are really games that can weigh heavily on you, so they've got to shake it off.
Yeah, because there's also some compounding factors. CLG's the 3 seed, Optic's the 6 seed. They think that was our game. Now we have to win 4 of the next 5. And on the flip side, even though CLG has a lot to work on, they have many things they can try to improve, they're already up 1-0 in the series. So I think mentally, that is a big edge going into Game 2 for CLG.
I mean, we heard from both Weldon and Zabutin before this series. In those interviews, they both talked about the difference between regular season play, best of 1s, and now going to the best of 5s, and how that's sort of just like a different mentality. Zabutin especially talking about stamina. And stamina isn't just what you think of in the traditional physical sense of, oh, I've got to play 5 games potentially instead of 1 game. It's the mental stamina to endure a game like that and a loss like that and continue marching forward and playing Game 2 like it didn't even happen.
Yeah, and we'll see if they're going to be able to do that. Oftentimes I think just going back to comfort, making sure you're really practiced on the champions you're going to be going to, really used to that sort of style, can kind of get you into that autopilot where maybe you're able to kind of shake some of that off. But I also think that CLG have some draft improvements that they can certainly make, right? They were able to find all these picks without any true hard engage in the late game. They had these super powerful carries, but no way to actually start fights in many cases. So, if they remedy that, grab some engage, I think that it could look even better for them.
Right. I look at that as almost Optic's errors as opposed to CLG just making the play on their own. Yes, I give CLG credit for finding the windows, but you could have a house with way nicer, bigger windows and those little just holes in the wall that you had cut with a Rek'Sai. There's a lot more that could be done. I wholeheartedly agree with you, Azael. Let's see how we change things up here in game number 2. Optic on the blue side, banning out that Xayah against Counter Logic Gaming, just like we saw in game number 1.
Yeah, and what's CLG going to match with? Again, we see an Akali ban. Previously, even though CLG was blue side, they also made sure to get rid of Aatrox. Have to see if that comes through once again. I do have to credit Wiggly with a lot of that game. He got the first 2 kills for CLG. He kept looking, right? It was actually the Rek'Sai, who sure they had limited tools, but he found every fight.
Yeah,
is what it felt like.
He MacGyvered those tools into something usable and found initiation after initiation onto an Ezreal.
I mean, the final pick is a flashless Rek'Sai initiating on a 40% CDR Iceborne Gauntlet Ezreal. So riddle me that, right? He found a lot of different engages here, and I think he did play it out very well with kind of what they had drafted for themselves. He didn't get a ton done on the Rek'Sai early, but he was still able to have a strong game because he found the small windows when they did present themselves. The pick outside of the base when, Arrow gets tagged with the Q, bursting him 100-0. The pick in mid lane without even having flash, and even trading his flash earlier to set up for that. So certainly does deserve credit.
All right, checking in with the bans here after those first couple have been done. It's Karma and Irelia, the next 2 bans for the side of Optic Gaming, while CLG decide they do not want Meteos on the Jarvan here again. They saw what he was able to do with it there the last game. And also, as expected, Yuumi, the final red side ban, you don't want to give that away for free. Optic immediately locking the Aatrox.
Aatrox for Dhokla. This is a risk by CLG, saying that the Jarvan and the initiation it provides is higher value than Dhokla's best pick.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting to actually see that go over, but at the same time, they will be able to very likely trade this for the said 20. Really S-tier jungler here. This is going to give them a lot of strong engage in and of themselves. And Ruin is also going to have a pick to answer Aatrox. You know, he is blind picking this, you know, on the side of Dhokla. So, you know, Ruin is someone that has so many champions that he is comfortable playing. I would not be surprised to see something even along the lines, you know, of the Renekton, which he has played. Right. I think that's a strong matchup into it, and he has performed quite well on it. Pairs up very well with Sejuani also.
Yeah, Ruin has played 11 unique champions across 19 games this split, including tiebreakers, which is the most unique champions of any player who was in the series today. So if you are going to have a guy to counterpick the key pick from the enemy's top laner, it would be Ruin. Still have to see how that plays out, though.
Along with that Sejuani, we're also going to see Azir here picked up again. Power of Evil played it in game number 1. Sees no reason to fix what ain't broken technically, because they did blow up their opponent's Nexus technically in game number 1. So they're going to be locking that one in here again. On the side of Optic, the traditional Sejuani counter coming out in the Trundle there for Meteos, as the Sylas is grabbed there for mid lane.
And it's going to be Camille top, so he's not actually going to go to the Renekton. This will be Camille. Also pairs up incredibly well with Sejuani, another melee champion to help stack that Sejuani passive. You have incredibly strong Engage to set up those ganks for the Sejuani. And Grasp Camille actually has such strong trading patterns into the Aatrox. Yeah. You go forward, you get your auto attack for the passive physical damage shield, and you're able to win almost every one of those trades. So this is certainly an advantageous matchup for Rune. And you can see that CLG has already remedied their Engage issues, right? You have Camille, you have Sejuani. That already is fantastic.
Yeah, they're going in. This is also the counter pick that Ruin used against Aatrox when they played Echo Fox late in the split, and he had an extremely strong game there.
Now, game number 1 to me felt like both sides just had cold feet. You said it, Jat. We saw 3 kills by 27 minutes. That is an incredibly slow game of League of Legends. And just by the draft here from CLG in the first half so far, I'm hoping they're wanting to put the pedal to the metal here a little bit more as we see what's coming out. It's Ezreal and Tahm Kench fans. That gives me even more hope. They're saying, nope, you are not allowed to play this low interaction bottom lane. Optic are also going to ban away the Braum.
I think there was an opportunity to play some mind games with the Ezreal, especially after they picked Arrow 3 times in a row, being like, you want to play Ezreal again against a Camille? Good luck, right?
My guess.
We'll just keep killing you. Build a Zonies and a QSS. He's not going to help you. But they actually do ban it out, I think, because Arrow was having a strong game up until that point, and it also allows them to try and pick something more lane dominant bot.
So it is going to be the Varus here for Stixxay. You know, Draven is up. I'm not sure if he would feel comfortable to actually go that direction here against the Varus, which is a pretty strong laning champion. Can be difficult to actually navigate that. But Draven is certainly something that they are worried about, you know, with Arrow, and with a lot of his most played already taken off the table. You know, his 3 most played are all gone. Draven would be the pick you would go to next, I would think.
The natural thing that's left, Arrow.
Yeah, there we go.
Just do it.
Locking it in. All right, there we go. Whirling death for Optic Gaming. Draven locked in the bottom lane. It was the first ban from CLG in game 1. They decided to let it through, and Optic says, thank you, much obliged.
Yeah, Sivir, Xayah, Ezreal, those are his 3 most played. With those all off the table, you know, it was going to be pushing him down in the champion pool. Draven is his next most popular. And Draven and Morgana, I think this is actually really nice. This is setting up for a very lane-dominant lane once again. We saw the advantages that they got with the Bard. Morgana also answers some of the initiation here from Sejuani very well. But Zyra would actually be a throwback to the early weeks. Biofrost did play this, and I do think that some of those ranged poke champions are very effective into Morgana because you're able to poke off the Black Shield very, very easily. This is a matchup I used to always use in solo queue into Morgana. It's actually incredibly good. You can block the binding with your plants. You drop a seed at your foot and throw a root for an instant plant. You can poke off the Black Shields with your Q plants. It's actually a really good matchup.
And once you're going into these team fights, look at the composition from Optic Gaming. Melee top laner, melee jungler that can only run at you, melee mid laner. These guys are walking into a straight up forest of Stranglethorns and plants and vines, and Biofrost has so much control potential in these team fights.
Yeah, I really like the composition that COG's been able to put together, getting their choice against the Aatrox, getting the Zyra into the Morgana, even though it is pushing down the support champion pools a fair bit, is something Biofrost has some comfort on. For Optic, I think it's about the execution. Can Meteos get Dhokla going, trundle alt the Sejuani in every team fight, and watch him go wild? Because as far as getting lane priority, I think it's actually maybe difficult, especially in the mid lane with Crown Sylas, against what COG has put together in terms of team fighting and initiation.
Sejuani also being one of those champions that Wiggly has popped off on time and time again. We've seen the man do plenty of work with this champion, and I'm excited to see him on something with more engaged potential than a Rek'Sai, as we already talked about. Optic Gaming, again, we're going to be looking at this team that has never been in playoffs before to make changes based on game number 1 to make things happen here as we head into game number 2 and reset mentally.
So my woe was unrelated to what you were saying. This is Predator Sejuani. So we have seen the adaptation of moving away from Big Dokes, shout out in the crowd. We've seen the adaptation to move away from Aftershock when you're up against Trundle. People have done Hill Blade, people have doing complete footwork. This is essentially a similar style, but it's more priority towards early ganking than it is towards the dueling. You know, Fleet Footwork keeps you healthy and you're clear. Hail of Blades helps you stack passive and fight early. This is gonna help him gank, and I'm actually so excited to see how this pans out.
And as you discussed, one of the keystones on CLG, important to point out the 2 others that can sometimes shift. Power of Evil playing the Comet Azir, meaning it's more of that bursty style as opposed to the lethal tempo, which lets him really pop off with attack speed later on in fights. Stixxay with lethal tempo on the Varus means it will be on hit, traditional type of AD carry type of build with the Varus as opposed to pure poke lethality.
And it's also Klepto Camille, you know, another more atypical style. This is 2 games in a row now that Ruin has gone for that Klepto, really valuing all the additional gold and items that he can stack up. We'll see how effective it is going to be. You know, we know that Jace can farm that off of Poppy very easily, but are you going to trade enough on the Camille to really get value from this? You know, compared to some of the other really popular ones like Press the Attack or even Comet.
Yeah, I think they'll have to do a lot with the jungle pressure and how much Wiggly decides to go up there early, because if Camille can get any type of lead early, then you'll start getting those Klepto procs. And I like what we're seeing in the bottom lane there, where both lanes trying to deny the Zyra plant spawns. That's why Biofrost wasn't there to pull his duo lane. That's why Wiggly is starting topside as well, because in this double range support matchup, so much priority can be gained by being to the lane early, and both teams going all in on the early lane.
Arrow and Big trying to not be scared away by those seeds that were placed down by Biofrost. I always enjoy watching a bottom lane between 2 marksmen who normally excel early on. Arrow's getting the better of Stixxay here early. Throwing out a couple more axes onto the minions as they back away. CLG won't find too much more here to be talked about just yet, as both junglers are clearing through their jungles completely. You can see Wiggly going towards the Krugs, Gromp and Blue having already been cleared out by Meteos as well.
Yeah, there's so many cool little optimizations and choices both sides have actually made. You can see, you know, even the Optic bottom lane, it is actually going to be Doran's shield for the Draven to help deal with that poke, alongside Guardian on the Morgana. So again, this is similar to what we've seen out of Lux and some of these range champions in poke style of builds. You know, this is going to be more effective, so it's just all to help deal with the Varus and Zyra.
And you can see right now, Big had just walked up into the CLG jungle, placed a ward down at the blue buff. He can see that the buff is still there. He knows Wiggly has yet to make his way down towards this bottom side. He's not going for some quick, clear path to make a quick gank bottom. Yeah. And they'll be able to see when he does finally start that up.
Yeah, looking at the early lanes for COG, both mid and top are pushed in, so basically Wiggly just decided to do a full clear instead and work towards bot side. The risk there would be of Meteos to try something to get an early game top side, but I actually like the reason why Wiggly did not go for that.
Arrow is so scary with these axes. This is what Draven does best, just boom, boom, boom.
And this is actually so problematic because Stixxay got poked off before the wave arrived at the turret. So there is potential for him to miss a lot of these minions. You know, this is where he's trying to catch up.
Yeah, and Meteos is invading right now. He's actually trying to push him off of blue buff, and I think he's going to get it if he lands the smite.
Oh, but it is secured by Wiggly. Nicely done there with a flail.
That could have been disastrous based off the bottom lane pressure from Meteos if he could have gotten the blue and the Gromp, because he was already level 4. But clutch of Wiggly to kind of stay in the game there is basically the bottom lane getting chunked out so much gave Meteos the green light to invade.
You gotta love it when your laners give you that priority as a jungler to know, hey, nobody's gonna collapse. This one's all up to you. Meteos knows he's the better duelist on this Trundle. Ruin top side here, trading back and forth with Dhokla. There's that physical damage shield that you were talking about earlier, Azael. Means Dhokla does not want to go in for any sort of a trade while that is active. Crown will get back here in the mid lane, has no mana left to work with on the Sylas. Wiggly, knowing that the bottom side of his jungle has already been taken or he fought for it himself, top side now securing the Scuttle Crab.
Yeah, I do wonder if we're going to see more aggression early game from CLG here because they have drafted the tools to do so. They have spotted the Trundle out. Really, it's about whether or not Camille goes, Biofrost is caught.
Biofrost is out of there. Draven's mowing the lawn. First blood for Optic Gaming.
And they were actually going to get frozen off that wave. They were trying to get the shove in, but it looks like Big just landed the Ignite and gets that first blood.
Yeah, we'll have to see if he hit a binding there or what exactly happened, because Biofrost did go down without flash, so I assume the binding must have connected. And let's watch this one more time. He is on the ward. Yeah, binding straight onto him. You are so squishy, and intelligently Big drops the Black Shield onto Arrow, so that cannot actually be peeled off. And you see the 3 stacks of Blight were there for Stixxay, but he missed the piercing arrow that was actually dodged out by Big. So I do think that by Arrow, so there was potential for a kill trade had that landed, because that is a lot of burst damage back.
And I like the fact that Biofrost did not waste his flash there. After the binding into the stand aside, there's no way you flash out of the auto attack range. Arrow's got your number one way or the other. Keep the summoner spell for next time. But CLG, they don't want to let that happen too many more times. Draven especially, considering the nature of his passive, those early kills mean so much more.
And he has the BF sword by. That is the Draven dream, really. Getting that early burst base with a BF, so much AD scaling, on his kit. And the double longsword is really not going to be able to match power whatsoever.
The entirety of the gold lead for Optic is on Arrow's Draven. The bottom lane priority has already allowed Meteos to invade blue, take Gromp. Now it means yet another neutral objective for the Optic team. Dragon control continues to be impeccable for Optic this series, when it had been a focus of CLG and Wiggly the entire split. CLG coming into this series with the most Dragon kills of all LCS teams. That has not been the story so far this series.
An Ocean Drake is the name of the game that people usually talk about when you mention early Drakes and the ones you want to grab. But a Mountain, like what we're seeing here this game, can be very nice early on if you've got lane control and you can get some of those plates. Makes it real easy to mine that extra plate.
And it's so much about how Arrow can play around this bottom side with Meteos, because the top lane counterpick is working amazingly for CLG. So it's really about getting as much benefit out of this bottom lane before the top lane starts paying off for CLG, because it could be the battle of these two lanes. It's just Optic is converted more so in the kills and the plates this far.
Yeah, I completely agree. Despite the fact that they are up, they would actually be, pretty concerned, I think, with the state of top lane had bot lane not gotten that 2v2 kill. And now it is CLG looking to dive on this wave.
And remember, this Aatrox can't come back from the dead. He's going to be slammed into the ground, and Ruin will walk away casually. CLG send 3 top, and they get their man.
That was perfect timing, because they stacked up this massive wave that he is now losing.
Dhokla will probably TP back in, but there's got to be a bit of hesitation here, because CLG could have stuck around for another dive. They did not, so it is just 2 plates that help with that wave.
Oh, he got interrupted.
Ruin got real greedy there just to make sure that he got the plate, and he will lose his flash for that.
Yeah, it is funny, because if that's solo queue, you probably don't TP back immediately because you're expecting them to get dove. That is such a common solo queue play. When you do get dove, and there's a fat wave of your turret, they know you want it, they'll just sit in that brush, and then you start TPing, they walk out of the brush as the TP's going, and you're like, no. Can I cancel it, please?
It's almost like you outthink yourself there. You think, okay, this is pro, so he's not going to teleport back in. So let's actually just go back to wave. And then he teleports back in and gets the wave. There was some wave stuff in the mid lane that PoE had to go back for anyway, so he's trying to maximize his farm as well. A lot of small little decisions that don't necessarily show up in the scoreboard.
Yeah, it is really interesting, because, if you lose all that experience there as Dhokla, you're probably doomed, right? For the rest of the game. So Ruin, either way, does have a huge advantage. They got a turret play for him. He got the kill as well. So it really is kind of becoming the battle of these 2 lanes, right? It's these 2 super strong members on either side, and it's going to be about which team can make the most of the advantage that they really have at this point in time.
You can see Ruin will continue zoning Dhokla away, as he's so far away from the minion wave, doesn't want anything to do with the engage range of that hook shot from Camille. Bottom side, level 6 is up for everybody. Means we could see some plays being made down here. Junglers not really getting involved with anything too much just yet. Wiggly still sitting on that 1 assist that he got from earlier, as Power of Evil will push up mid. And Power of Evil and Crown, as they're on the screen, I really just want to talk about what we saw from Crown last game, because remember, in a game that was very low on kill count, it was Crown getting caught out twice that was 2 of those kills before that 30-minute mark.
And you gotta wonder how that plays forward into this game. Does Crown go less aggressively towards farm? And does that actually take away from his ability to get fed? Because on a champion like Sylas, even though he can let Azir push him in, take the farm afterwards, he's got to play aggressively when it comes to team fights and get in there. So Ruin was trying to make Roam down. Turns out he gets clapped on.
Ruin's going to be in some trouble here. Issues the Hextech ultimatum, but now the backup's not going to come in time. CLG backing themselves away. The Whirling Death came in, but the Stranglethorns will find their victims. It's a double kill for Power of Evil and a 3-for-1 for CLG.
Optic take the fight, but the roam from Biofrost was so unexpected. They got roasted by that Stranglethorn ultimate, and the Azir damage layered on everyone.
This is what I said in Champ Select. That ulti is so good against a melee team, and Optic find it out the hard way.
Yeah, it looks like the difference in this one, even though Ruin is the one who gets caught out, both supports ended up roaming. It's the fact that the top lane of Optic, if you think about the grand scheme of the fight, this was a 4v3 for CLG, so many cooldowns to kill Ruin. Sejal into Zyra ult, into Azir soldiers, massive AoE that Optic funneled into, and the numbers advantage ends up being the difference.
I mean, Arrow tried to help with the Whirling Death from bottom lane. You can see that take a bit of a chunk out of the health bars, but it's just not enough to compete with what CLG brought to the table. Power of Evil also enjoying not only the double kill, but the reward of the double buffs, making his laning phase that much easier. CLG now able to move up, control the bottom side of the river, control the Scuttle Crab, just in time for second Drake spawn.
There's still a Bloodthirster Draven here, so Optic might want to fight here.
Stixxay finds his Chains of Corruption onto Big, who uses the Hourglass, the stasis, I should say, from the stopwatch to keep himself alive. But the piercing arrow and the auto attack from Biofrost to seal the deal will take him down. Meteo's still here on the bottom side, trying to control this Tribush, keep some sort of semblance of order for the side of Optic Gaming in this bottom half of the map. Ocean Drake not going to be taken just yet, but CLG have started up, and they won't be backing away.
And I can understand the mindset of Optic right there. They think, okay, bottom lane is our strength. We have the Bloodthirster Draven. Let's keep this Drake control because top lane is going so astray for them. But they lose that as well. Nice juke by Dhokla. Let's see what Ruin can do.
Ruin waiting to use the Hextech ultimatum to dodge away from one of the Qs. Forces the flash out from Dhokla.
That was actually so close. Had he connected, with that hook shot, that would have been a kill. That would have been it. But Dhokla still being forced to use the flash in retreat, and Ruin is getting very close to that Triforce, which is such an insane spike for the Camille. But here this is one more time. They know Big has no flash. That is just an initiation from Stixxay. Nails the Varus ultimate, and Big just really has no way out, despite the fact they had this super strong Draven.
Yeah.
With the member going down so early, they couldn't really fight back.
It felt to me like there was some miscommunication there because Big actually used Black Shield on Meteos, as Meteos had the potential to opt into the 3v3, but then Optic kind of changes their mind after the Varus ult lands on Big and back off. I think Power of Evil's Azir was in River, so it could have turned into a 4v3, which is why Optic backed out, but unfortunate play there for them.
Oh boy, here comes yet another one for CLG. It's the Rift Herald summon up in mid lane, but fortunately for Optic Gaming, they secure first turret and they get all the plate money before that 14-minute mark there in the bottom lane. Mid lane, Shelly's almost able to take down the tier 1, but almost isn't good enough. Meteos and Crown are there in time to stop the turret from falling.
Yeah, so the bot lane advantage still is extending here for Arrow. They just haven't really been having him involved in a lot of other fights, so it hasn't been as noticed, but he's 1,800 gold ahead of Stixxay. That is still an enormous advantage. They got that first turret, they got the 2v2 kill, and now the question is, where will you send the Draven? Will you send him up to the top lane, move your Aatrox down bot to try to continue pushing these towers?
Now, I want to point something out that I noticed right as you mentioned that the Trinity Force was almost online for Ruin, Azael. And the reason it's not online is because it's been slowed down a little bit for this Executioner's Calling, which is a fantastic adaptation to the state of the game by Ruin very early on to shut down healing from the entire top half of the map. Never mind, the entire part of the map because Draven rushed Bloodthirster. 4 out of 5 of these champions heavily rely on healing. Ruin, big pickup there, making sure he's got that to shut it down.
Yeah, and a big push by CLG here in the mid lane. Had actually committed 5 people to that until Arrow clears away with an ult. But yeah, your favorite item, Azael, Executioner's Calling.
I'm the #1 fan. I mean, you're going up against Aatrox is already good there. Trundle healing off the ultimate is massive. You know, the Kingslayer, if you're meeting a side lane against Crown, it's good there. Really, it's such a smart item purchase, and I do think that pros are, it feels like in the last month or two, starting to buy it a lot more consistently. You know, starting to realize the value. It's something that I've had discussions with some of the analysts and coaches, and you know, they're kind of struggle to properly illustrate just mathematically how effective it is to the pros, because most of the pros play off of field, right? And they're like, well, yeah, but it feels better to see a bigger number when you get Lord Dominic's, right? You don't necessarily know it's being as effective.
Well, here's the thing. It also feels better for your opponent when they see big numbers on their heals. What if you cut those in half? Then they don't get nearly as big a numbers as you're getting. But topside, Wiggly's looking to add yet another number to his body count. If Dhokla can be dove here by Ruin shoving this wave up in time, we need a couple more auto attacks onto the minion waves to make sure it happens. Dhokla getting back now, smelling that something's up here, does not want to deal with this, and Ruin will take the tier 1.
Nice little back and forth there by Dhokla and Ruin. Ruin basically got enough chunk damage onto Dhokla that the turret dive would be possible, and then the Sejuani had been missing on the map for such a long time. It was a really smart play by Dhokla to get as many minions as possible before retreating safely.
Speaking of many minions as possible, Ruin making sure he allowed that turret to execute as many of them as he could before he put the final touches on it there, just farming up the minions from his opponent's side. In the meantime, Ruin sitting on a 30 farm lead over his opponent with Trinity Force, with Ninja Tabby, with Executioner's Calling. Very scary Camille at this point of the game. Mid lane, the same farm lead has been built for Power of Evil over Crown here with this Azir. Bottom side, still the only place Optic are winning in this matchup in terms of farm, but it's only by about 15 to 20, depending on which minion wave has been farmed up first. Wiggly moving through the bottom side of the river here, trying to maintain control over this area, because once again, it's going to be very important here in about 20 seconds when Mountain Drake spawns.
Yeah, and it is concerning for Arrow, because when you have 2 losing solo lanes, sometimes in a team fight, they just end up getting ignored and everyone will dogpile onto you. We know how good the initiation is from the side of CLG, and Arrow is very powerful, yes, but if he goes down immediately, he really is their one source of power. He has the Bloodthirster and the Rapid Fire, so he's hit a really strong 2-item spike, but you have Power of Evil on 2 items. You have Rune at a really strong point in the game, and we'll see if that's going to be enough to offset it.
CLG are not afraid whatsoever of beginning this objective or the potential collapse from Optic. They had Biofrost waiting on the side to drop down the control if they needed it. He'll be caught there between the wall. Wiggly throws out the ulti, but the Glacial Prison's not going to find anyone. Optic with priority over the mid lane now. They move up to the tier 1. Piercing Arrow's going to be fired out. Power of Evil over the wall. Wiggly getting himself away from the stolen Glacial Prison. Meteos now in retreat. Subjugate had been used, and a nice shutdown for Crown.
Crown having the aggression to go in there when they had the Sejuani ult advantage. None on Wiggly, one on Crown. They decided they could push up on the turret, and since Biofrost have been kind of fishing for a pick the whole time, now they might die.
Chains of Corruption coming out, dive going through. Stixxay going to be pulled back, but Power of Evil's able to find some big ult damage. Double kill over to the Emperor of Shurima, and he will tear them to pieces. Ruin grabs the third, and Optic are limping home.
Yeah, Optic tried to go in for a really aggressive dive there. They had the man advantage, but both the super strong solo laners as well as the AD was still alive. It was only Biofrost missing, so if you don't immediately get those kills, the damage will be there from those solos and from that turret, and CLG turning around.
Yeah, PoE is the guy they have to worry about. With those 2 items, he is online. So watching this dive one more time, PoE had used an escape, but they haven't necessarily got him. And sure, you land a binding onto Stixxay, but he is the weakest carry of the bunch. They can't dive through the Emperor's Divide. The solo laners do collapse with a good Hex Tech ultimatum from Ruin, and then they just clean up afterwards. Unless Optic can actually full kill PoE, that dive is too risky.
And I don't think you're killing him here anytime soon. Take a look on your screen as we've got a comparison between the junglers. Wiggly with a 6 out of 8 kill participation, no deaths so far. Yeah, he's a little bit behind in farm compared to Meteos, and that keeps Meteos close in gold. But in terms of overall game impact, there's no comparison so far.
Yeah, Wiggly definitely has had, I think, the advantage of these winning solos and has been able to make good on that, you know, really being a part of a lot of these team fights. But Arrow's still very strong, and they will have to continue trying to play around that strength, because one of the big problems here is that, you know, the Aatrox versus Camille matchup doesn't get better, right? You know, this is not something where Aatrox catches up late game. Camille really does just outscale you, and if you lose early, you're going to be very likely weaker for the rest of the game. And likewise, I feel similarly with Azir. I think Sylas can kind of make up for that somewhat with the playmaking if you can steal a really good ult, but it's going to be on Crown to pull off a really nice play, like the stolen Sejuani ult, to be able to kind of make up for the lack of damage compared to the Azir.
Yeah, and on the side of PoE, Azir was CLG's first pick last game, and I think we're seeing why here in Game 2, why they put such a high priority on it. We know that drafts become a lot more specialized when best of fives come, and adaptation is key, but the prep here was, let's make sure Crown doesn't get Azir. Let's make sure PoE is very comfortable and good on Azir, and that's what he's been this game. Full mid lane control, roaming for several kills.
Biofrost tried to make a pick happen there onto Big, but a good black shield onto himself kept him plenty safe. You can see his health bar barely taking any damage. Biofrost taken very low himself from the damage coming towards him over the wall there in the Wraith Pit. He'll be sent home, and without the Strangle Thorns available, Optic will at least feel a little bit safer here for the next 90 seconds or so, but 90 seconds is just enough time for that next objective to come online.
And we'll see who's going to be the ones to go for it. Optic, so much pressure around this mid lane while CLG is splitting. They are in this 1-3-1 kind of formation, and sending Biofrost back to base meant they had enough to actually grab that turret. Wiggly may be getting caught out here.
But the Predator is up and the Poro is galloping. I have never seen that Poro run so fast.
Coming back at him.
Well, they're not going to find anyone here just yet. Bottom side, Ruin will go tier 1 for tier 1 with Optic over the course of the play itself. He'll grab that last link in the outer turret chain of Optic Gaming and maintain CLG's 4,000 gold lead.
Yeah, and Optic is going to feel like they have to do something. Notice how they're not even getting close to Ruin in the side lanes. These aren't matched 1-3-1s where the minion wave and the vision control decides whether or not you step up. This is Dhokla waiting for the wave to crash into his turret, then going there. So this gives CLG the first step in almost every single neutral objective fight because they have such powerful side lane priority.
And that's why you're seeing a 2-level advantage now for Ruin. And you know, if we can actually swap over to the gold here from the observers, you know, that when last time we checked in, we saw that it was actually Arrow, richest member in the game. There are now 2 members that have actually surpassed him over here on the side of Optic. Power Eagle, very, very strong. Rune, very, very strong as well. And yes, the Draven is going to be impactful, but it feels like they haven't been able to get much done with it.
Look at that 1v1. It's not even close. Over the wall comes Wiggly, and away goes Big's health bar. Strangle Thorns come down just to make sure Optic's not looking to go back in anytime soon. Crown is not able to do anything with the stolen Sejuani ult this time around, and CLG find a pick.
I actually really like how Biofrost is using the Zyra ultimate here. It feels like they go very aggressively for it, and then he drops it to dissuade the rest of Optic from ever being able to re-engage the fight. They can't actually join up with their member that falls behind.
And instead of going for a 23-minute Ocean Drake, they turn directly on the Baron. They have Mountain and they have Azir so they can kill it quickly, and they have Camille ult if they want to turn.
They learned their lesson from game number 1. Baron's better than a Drake, and CLG will take it down. Now they're looking to go even further. The fight is on, and Arrow is broken. Crown's now the next target as Ruin continues to go forward. Crown's looking to turn things around, and he'll slap him down.
Nicely done there by Crown, trading it back, but still they shut down the Draven. They kill him off. They get the Baron. They take a turret. CLG are in full control, and what is with all these early Barons in playoffs?
Crown's going back. What was that?
Go for more.
Looking for big plays.
Trying to get another one, and that was a sense of desperation, I think, from Crown because the game really just did come completely out of their hands. Thought maybe he could get a return kill on a PoE. Definitely could not. And again, we're going to watch this whole play really unfold where Ruin finally gets close to Dhokla, and you see why Dhokla is never wanting to be close to Ruin. And the rest of CLG does eventually collapse in. The Zyra ult flies into zone. Ruin holds off his ult the whole time for this moment. They think, okay, if Midos comes to steal, we'll ult him. If we get the Baron first, we can kill Arrow anyway because they still have the man advantage from the kill earlier.
And that was such a well-timed ult there from Ruin. You will actually follow over walls, follow the flashes he did there with the Hextech ultimatum if you time it properly. Ruin gets a little bit too hypey for his own good going down to Crown, but CLG have full control of the map. They are running this game, and Power of Evil finished a death cap and got the blasting wand off of that. Like, he is absurdly strong. You can't even poke them out. They have double ocean. It feels like everything is in CLG's favor.
CLG with the momentum here in the mid game. Let's see if they can get more done with this Baron than Optic was able to last time around. The first 3 Barons for Optic Gaming, not accomplishing a lot. The first 2 failed to break the base. The third, they at least got in there, but they weren't really able to cripple CLG too much. Power of Evil's been caught out. This could be a big one here for the side of Optic. PoE in some trouble, still having to get out here. Flash over the wall. He'll stay alive. I don't think there's he's trying to back away. Meteos shouldn't be able to close this distance any further. Might go for a pillar, but the tier 1 is still standing up here, and that means Optic will not get the pick. Meanwhile, Ruin just continues doing what Ruin does, and bottom side, Dhokla just has no answer whatsoever. TP coming in mid lane. Power of Evil is rested up and ready to go. They'll take down the tier 3, and CLG is showing Optic how to use a 20-minute Baron.
Pre-existing gold lead, strong initiation, not dying randomly. Those are the 3 things you need with this Baron buff.
I like number 3.
He almost did. He actually almost did, but he was able to escape with that flash, and now they can go for a dive.
All right, Wiggly misses the Glacial Prison there. That means Meteos is going to be kept alive. Black Shield helping make sure of that, but the inhibitors will not sing the same song. The mid and bottom inhibitors are down. CLG has occupied Optic's base, and they will look to take this game even further. The push continues. Power of Evil dashes forward, just trying to juke him out here a little bit. Not gonna find much just yet. Crown fires off the Chains of Corruption, but a nice stopwatch from Stixay will stop that in its tracks. And there come the Stranglethorns. Wiggly's into the Optic lines. Meteos on the retreat. Ruin's grabbing the kill onto Big. He's gonna be kept alive by a stopwatch of his own counterattack coming out. Crown's able to shut down Wiggly, and with 2 dead for CLG, Optic will hold the line.
Yeah, Optic barely surviving. They're trying to chase for more, but I don't think they can get it. Now they're TPing in Crown. They want this flank and the ace.
Well, Power of Evil has summoned the turret. They're gonna make their stand right here. Meteos in some trouble. Shut down onto PoE. Stixay's the next target. The Crown's not able to find a whole lot. A double kill over to Stixay. And it's so many dead on both sides. It's a bloodbath.
Explosive action there, 26 minutes in after CLG made such an aggressive and likely overambitious call to try and end the game 5v5 with the last 30 seconds of their Baron buff. So Crown steals the Varus ultimate, and that's really where the fight begins. Biofrost then lands the root, and here CLG has the option of trying to end the game. If any of these kills actually fall through, if they kill Meteos right away, they probably win the game. But Ruin actually doesn't get the execution onto Arrow on the other side either. And then I do really like Optic's choice to teleport in here and try and pick up more.
Yeah, there were very split calls there. You know, Ruin actually went into a 1v2 against Big and Arrow. He kills out Big. He has the Hextech ultimatum for Arrow, but no one else was there to help him out. And then this TP flank, risky, but you have to go for these sorts of plays when you're this far behind. And they look for that winning play. Just barely dying there. Arrow knows one more auto attack, he probably could have healed back up with that Bloodthirster.
And you can see the frustration on his face. Optic needs everything they can get. Every death means so much. And speaking of deaths, that ace was the first time in this game 3 members of CLG, their mid, their AD carry, their jungler, had died at all.
Yeah, and Optic absolutely has had their backs against the wall. That was the first instance where they were able to fight back, and they're going to be stuck in this perpetual state of defense once again with 2 inhibitors down.
And I think it's so hard now to win from this spot when you look at actually, you know, these items here on Ruin. He has his GA now, you know, look at the items over on the Azir as well. You have such ridiculously strong solos. Ruin can essentially just run it down for the Arrow kill. If you can get a trade kill on Draven, CLG will run over the team fight, and you have the GA to be able to kind of throw yourself in that backline with Reckless Abandon, so it becomes so difficult to even approach a potential Baron area.
Compare that to the Aatrox with Black Cleaver, Death Dance Garage Sale, and a stopwatch. It's just not enough. CLG now on to Baron for the second time as it spawns, but Optic are willing to contest.
This time, COD doesn't actually need the Baron, though. They need Ruin to buy time to go in. The ultimate there from Stixxay definitely decreases the amount of threat they have. I mean,
they don't care.
They can get it because Optic backed off, but that's because Ruin is applying the pressure in the base.
And it was shredded so quickly by the combined might of Varus and Azir. Ruin only needed to hang out there in the base for a moment to provide that pressure.
Yeah, I mean, you can't 1v1 Ruin. There's only one Nexus turret. He will just straight up kill Dhokla under that. They lost their inhibitor, their last inhibitor to minions as well. They are getting...
Meteos is trapped.
Oh, Meteos is found out by Ruin and Wiggly. Stun comes through, damage followed up, Hex Tech Ultimatum is issued, and Meteos is sent to the grave. 40 seconds until the Trundle is back up. It's a Baron up CLG squad, 5 men strong in the Optic base. The charge is in, the fight is on. Big gets himself away. Wiggly's gonna be backing up with the Gargoyle Stoneplate, and Dhokla is eviscerated. Arrow's on the run, Crown is down, and that is it. Double kill over to the side of Power of Evil and CLG, and they will win Game 2.
And that is such a heavy blow to Optic. Not just the fact that CLG is now up 2-0 in the series, but the fact that they did it against Dhokla's signature Aatrox pick. They had the counter pick that could take them down, and the fact that it was a quick and decisive victory for CLG.
We talked in the beginning of the game about how Optic wanted to play around that winning bottom lane. We saw the 2v2 kill there for the first blood, but it just didn't matter when the solo lanes won as hard as they did for Counterlogic Gaming.
Yeah, I mean, this game, I think the scoreline is all about PoE, but when you talk about pressure applied, it really was all about Rune. It was all about the Camille pick. You know, he got to such a point where Aatrox can't even farm at his turret anymore. When you're in that point of the game, you're auto-conceding that Baron because he can't even hold at Nexus turrets, right? When you're basically checkmated. Like, there's just nothing that they could really do without CLG throwing their lives away and getting picked off to buy themselves time.
Yeah, after the game 1, which CLG was defending the entire game, never breaking, bending a lot, but never actually breaking, to then bounce back with a game like this, has to just give them so much confidence towards Game 3.
And that's match point, right? I mean, if you're Optic, you can't let any more of these slip. It's time to step up or go home. But for more on how Game 2 shook out, we're going to throw things back to the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you, Captain Flowers. It's going to feel good for CLG to push it to match point with that kind of a victory over Optic Gaming. Very much in contrast to the first game. CLG largely in control for a majority of this game. We will talk about the early game and how they had to navigate that, but first I want to take a little look at Champion Select.
Yeah, because CLG did what everyone said not to do, which is leave Aatrox up versus Optic, but they do that because they have the Camille in their back pocket, and by banning the Jarvan and taking the Sejuani in first rotation, they push Meteos onto what they thought would be a Sylas, but then he goes for the Trundle. And then to make things even crazier, you have the Draven in the bot lane with the Morgana to potentially stop any sort of weird counter picks from coming in. And they tried the Zyra, which is a really volatile matchup when you already have a carry split push top laner that wants your jungler attention.
But the value in this Zyra is that you're up against 3 melees, an Aatrox, Trundle, and Sylas. They just have no way of getting in when it comes to that group phase. And I really would have liked to have seen Meteos on the Sylas instead of the Trundle here because it was just so bizarre. You know the Camille is coming. Camille against Trundle is just, you can do whatever you want.
Yeah, I think if Meteos was a more dive-heavy, aggressive jungler, like, think of how many times they could have dove bot in situations like this, where Stixxay's at literally 10% of the tower. If that's a Jarvan, which I know got banned, but let's say a more aggressive jungler, maybe even
well, the Sylas,
the
right?
Sylas,
if the Sylas stays in his hands. Unfortunately, he's relegated to jungle invades.
Yeah, and this is what happened in the CLG tiebreaker versus C9. Their bot lane got absolutely dumpstered with the early level 3 dive that wasn't possible here. And the bot lane continued to do work with the solo kill.
I mean, this is honestly the beginning of the top lane advantage to snowball for CLG. They even had PoE, so they knew that this was definitely the right call. Everybody on board, and a lot of it came down to giving Crown the Sylas so that he had the confidence going up against PoE. This was the first a week 2 win champion for Optic against CLG specifically, but then they don't realize that Zyra is already here. Surprise.
But why would you play this fight if you're on Optic's side? Optic has a humongous bot lane lead. BF Sword at 6 minutes. Why are you there at all?
I've asked that a lot about
It's
Optic.
actually crazy. Like, I'm watching BF Sword 6-minute Draven, bot lane's over, you know? Make figure 8s down there, it's over for them. And it's up to CLG to make the reverse play happen top side. But if you're swinging into CLG's top side, what are you doing?
Right, but I think that's a very important thing to call out, right? While the bot lane was going in favor of Optic, that Camille pick and the attention from Wiggly to the top lane really set the tone for a 1v1 lane that could no longer, you know, be managed by an Aatrox.
Yeah, I mean, Rune ended up taking both top and bot outer turrets by himself by forcing Aatrox out of lane. Like, he dumpstered Dhokla in this matchup.
Now, also, that said, I do want to talk about the mid laners. One of the biggest plays within this game was a 4v5 defense from CLG around their mid turret. Power of Evil coming up big on the Azir.
PoE's just having a field day today. The second game of Azir, I mean, I voted him into my pro teams, and he has been so consistent in just being a ridiculous threat that for some reason Optic is not really acknowledging. They keep forgetting that Azir's damage is just gonna melt through these melee champions that have to go through soldiers.
I mean, CLG's entire new team was built around PoE. Like, they wanted a carry from the mid lane, and that's what PoE became throughout the season. And especially this game showed, like, he had a 15-minute 2-item completion.
It's disgusting.
Disgusting,
That
actually.
stat line is actually so gross. But again, just kind of showing that CLG, when firing on all cylinders with, you know, their players on their respective power picks, they can make things happen even being a man down there in the mid lane. That would be the catalyst for them to really snag control over the game. 3 Drakes to 1 Drake would move on to the Barons as well. Here's the pick that brings it home for that Baron.
Yeah, once again, Rune kind of starting things off on his own. At this point, it's almost a 4v5. Dhokla's in full retreat mode. Wiggly just follows up quite nicely.
Right, he has to pop the ult just to run.
Yeah, and you kill big. Now that some of their vision control down, everyone's low. They're going to keep chasing and eventually decide, all right, well, we've got enough of an advantage for this fight. We can just go right to Baron.
And this feels awful as Arrow, because at this point, like, he can't do anything. The solo laners overtake the game, and he's the type of guy who, like, you know, in solo queues, like, better bot wins. Because he's humongous, right? He's got 2 full items, but he literally can't walk up in any of these fights without dying.
The team is not set up to let him walk up, is my rap, and they didn't even play around him, right? So you picked a Draven, and normally they go Draven Nautilus to try to allow Big to make a lot of plays in the bottom lane. That's the MO for Optic, but when you select this way, the Draven's just stuck on his own.
Yeah, they didn't want to get counterpicked by taking the Nautilus and getting Morgana counterpicked by Biofrost. They just took the Morgana themselves, but then they lost a lot of what their agency is in the lane, as well as the fact, like we said, the Trundle can't do anything. So what could have been a huge bot side snowball just came apart.
Yeah, it ended up being like they just had no initiator when they had the lead, and then when they fell behind, they had nothing to work with.
And this it begins to feel like almost an impossible situation. You couldn't see me do the air quotes I just did there. Where Optic has now been perfectly positioned to win game 1, and CLG claws it back. And then CLG demonstrates the kind of control that is more typical of this team throughout Summer Split in game 2 to push us to now series point. And so from that perspective, I can only imagine the mental gymnastics that Optic is having to do to keep themselves, you know, on a level playing field, knowing they have to put 3 wins together here in a row.
Yeah.
What mental gymnastics are you going?
Yeah, well,
right.
No. I can admit to being wrong. I can admit to being
Whoa, it's
wrong.
not even over.
Yeah, I can.
You gotta back your team.
Yeah, no.
You flip-flopped into Optic.
I flip-flopped into an error. That's what I did, right? So I thought I flip-flopped, made a mistake. CLG looks so good right now. The confidence is definitely on their side. The momentum is there. And I think they picked up the slack from game 1. So they really adapted really well from what I thought was a big problem in game 1, not giving Wiggly the agency with the pick, as well as less priority on objectives. Flipped it completely all around. They recognized it, fixed it, and therefore I think they'll win game 3.
Okay, well, there you have it. Wow. CLG is back to Blue's side here. And so, Mark, you were the one that called the 3-0. Do you align with a lot of what Crumbs was saying here in terms of how it's going to be all tied up in a pretty bow?
For the most part, the one question is what they do with the Aatrox. They banned the blue side last time. I expect they'll do that again, but they still need to patch up a couple of the other problems because you can't emulate this red side draft going back to blue side. So they're going to have to change things up from game 1.
Yeah. Well, I got to say here, I'll do the mental gymnastics. I think Optic's bot lane has been looking pretty good. Even game 1, game 2, they've been doing great, like a lot better than I first expected. So if they're going to win, I'd say your bot lane is showing a lot of promise this series. Try to play around them a little bit more. And I think that maybe doing that, they have a good shot. You know, I think a lot of reason why the first
Strong
game went
language
well,
there to close that point out. Thank you.
I mean, I voted for CLG for a reason, okay?
Maybe if they do, they have a shot. All right.
Exactly.
Yeah, we're all on the same page. CLG on the edge of sweeping their way to the semifinals. See if Optic can dig deep and fight back in Game 3 after this.
Now it is CLG looking to dive on this wave.
And remember, this Aatrox can't come back from the dead. He's going to be slammed into the ground. Now the backup's not going to come in time. CLG backing themselves away. The Whirling Death came in, but the Stranglethorns will find their victims.
Just defend. I can ult for you.
I healed.
I'm trying to run. Trundle. Mark's dead. I have the base. Final flash.
What is with all these early Barons?
Crowd going back. What was that?
Taking tower.
We gotta get out of here. This
Fair splash. Nice, let's go.
It's fine, defend.
Dhokla is eviscerated. Arrows on the run. Crown is down, and that is it. Double kill over to the side of Power of Evil and CLG, and they will win Game 2.
When you're chasing greatness, just remember, it's not about what you say. It's about what you do.
The crew of the Morning Star, here and ready to die. Make it quick.
You will lose. With perfect tempo, a symphony of justice.
Hasagi! You just made a grave mistake. Roth can't save you now, Sona. Hasagi is a really sad choice of last words. Malphite, what a loyal dog you are. Dogs die every day.
I'll give you to the count of heads up, duck! See ya!
Yeah, got a pretty big fender bender here.
State Farm's got you covered, Mike.
That's great to hear, Robin. Everybody remain calm. We have this situation under control. We'll be out of here in a jiffy.
You're back and just in time for Game 3, where CLG are on match point versus Optic Gaming. They won the first two, and the second one looked way cleaner than the first.
Yeah, they just came out in Game 2 with a completely different mindset. They gave over the Aatrox, showing no fear, grabbed a counter pick, played around top lane, PoE got fed once again, really just almost a completely different CLG, completely defensive in Game 1, into the offensive team in Game 2.
And I just love that, how proactive they were with all their engage once they had that. They weren't afraid to make plays. They were playing very, very effectively, around the Camille especially, and that split push, that room was kind of opening up. You do have to look over at Optic, though, and say kind of the lone bright spot there was really the bottom lane. They had that 2v2 kill. They took down first turret with the Draven, so they were able to get something from that. But the rest of the map, it felt like, had already collapsed by the time the Draven was really involved.
Well, as we head into Game 3 here, CLG is going to be back on the blue side. So we'll see what they're able to do here with that. Although it has been 1-1 for sides winning over the course of this series, remember that for 95% of the total game time, red side has been winning. It was just the 5% of that first game that Blue ended up coming back and winning there. So we'll see if CLG has the strategies required to pull it off this time. As you already mentioned, Azael, I think so much of it just was the draft changes in game number 2, giving CLG what they needed to take control over the game themselves. But I'm especially going to watch the draft this time around to see what conspires in the top lane, because of the fact that Dhokla was just destroyed so completely by that counter pick that came out from room.
Yeah, like, does CLG just leave the Aatrox through knowing they have the counter pick later? Because there is a chance that they could get pinched towards the end of the first phase. But interesting Draven ban right there, because another thing we were going to have to track was how was Arrow going to perform in Game 3? The player cam we saw towards the end of Game 2, he looked very invested in the game, and probably a larger reaction than we almost ever see out of Arrow on player cams as far as his disappointment when he died in one of those final
Or anyone. Honestly, that was one of the most anguished player cams I've seen. The man was clearly so invested in the state of the game that was, remember, even when they got the ace onto CLG, but just the fact that he died in the process, he knew how much everything in that game mattered.
And you know that it can be tough, right? You have game number 1, you got caught out a number of times, you feel like you want to make up for that. Now all of a sudden you're really strong on the Draven, you feel like you can carry, but you're not finding the opportunities the way it's in. And he clearly was very invested in that. A couple of bans from champions that were played last time around. Power Evil going to have to show us something new, as he has played back-to-back Azir games. The Aatrox and Draven, which were played last game by Optic, will be taken off the table as well.
Akali will continue to be banned away here. We've seen this banned out every single game so far. Nothing's going to change here in Game 3. Optic going to go ahead and file their Yuumi taxes early this time around. Get that one out of the way here second, as that'll leave the third ban up for them to decide what to keep away from CLG. 7 seconds left. We've been seeing some of these bans tick all the way down till 0 on the clock. Looks like Optic are going to take their sweet time here with this one as well. Final ban of the first phase, Sejuani. That was pretty big for Wiggly.
It is, but it's interesting because J4 Sejuani is often a trade that people are happy to make. This does open up for a potential first pick J4 with CLG, and then Meteos, perhaps getting pushed down. Sylas is up, so maybe that's the trade he would be willing to make, would be a Jarvan for a Sylas. And I do think Jarvan would be great for Wiggly, though. He's performed well on it. Sylas is going to be the choice, though.
Yeah, so it leaves Jarvan open. Of course, Sylas is fine against Jarvan in most cases. Oftentimes, he can do more damage with the Jarvan ult than Jarvan himself, plus the flexibility of it. So Optic was definitely kind of clearly discussing a lot of what that final ban was going to be. Probably didn't get the most value out of the Sejuani, but we'll see how the rest of the draft plays out.
I mean, remember it was Wiggly on Sylas that hard carried and ended the 3-year losing spree that CLG had against TSM. He knows his way around this champion, and CLG fans, I'm sure, would love to see him pop off on it here again. But Optic have decided to go for the Xayah as well as that Jarvan that Meteos had a good performance on in game number 1. Caitlyn locked in. Yep. There it is. The prophet himself.
Yeah, I like it. I mean, I think a lot of the draft has made sense so far. I thought CLG might have taken the Jarvan, but for the trade for the Sylas, it's just been the reverse, right? So as soon as you see the Xayah coming in, you're essentially blocking most of the good pairings for Xayah. If it's Rakan, you're picking into a counter pick. Nautilus is another common pairing with Xayah, also really, really tough into Morgana. You can go a different route, and this may be actually a Karma support, just as, again, poke as the answer to Morgana. But I still think, you know, it's tough because if you ever get hit by that binding, the trap follows it up, and you can get 100 to 0'd.
And speaking of the bindings and the traps working together, it's not just laning phase. I mean, as we go further into the game, we know what Caitlyn can do around objectives to secure them with a line of those Yordle snap traps. And if there's only one way to funnel through and Morgana's got her sights aimed right at it, turns out there's no ways to funnel through. But going through into the second part of the bans here, the first one Optic's going to get rid of is Skarner. F in the chat. And that means they're going to be looking to pinch this jungle pool a little bit more, just in case that Sylas isn't in the jungle and goes into solo lane.
Yeah, and the Karma can also be flexible on the side of Optic. There's a decent chance that that is a mid lane or a top lane Karma, and they still combo with the Rakan. I think it's really interesting that Optic ended up going with Karma there as the third pick before the second ban phase, because it's almost daring CLG to ban the Rakan, knowing that it could also flex down to something like Nautilus, or the Karma could just go down there anyway. So really trying to keep as many options open as possible, because I think CLG in this final game is just going for lane domination.
Yeah.
They had the late game with the Sivir Azir first game. They won the second game with the hard initiation, and here, with Optic completely on the back foot, if you can get them down a good amount of gold in the first 10 minutes, the mental just kind of breaks, and CLG would walk away with 3-0.
Yeah, and I mean, I think even some of these bans are kind of leading you to believe that they want to be having an isolated 2v2 bot lane, right? You're banning out the Taliyah, something that's barely ever played, because you don't want Crown running interference. You don't want the Zoe roaming down. Some of these champions that can have a lot of effectiveness. You know, Aurelion Sol, though, would be exciting in another roaming pick, unlikely to get it. And we'll see as we're likely going to have a Jace here locked in for Dhokla. So they want to save this last pick for Crown, likely, although, as you said, it could theoretically be that Karma mid. I just don't think it's Dhokla or Crown style. We've never seen them play the Karma. Crown is traditionally the hard carry. You know, Dhokla is traditionally not playing the lane dominant stuff like the Karma. So, you know, I am more expecting it to go to big, but he has no plays on it either, so we will have to find out.
Counter Logic Gaming still have those solo laners or potentially jungle to pick up. The flex power of the Sylas doing its work here. Poppy locked in.
Two sides to every lane matchup. We got to see Ruin v Dhokla's Poppy with Jace on the other side, and we got to switch it up in this game. It is the pick against Jace, and now we'll get to see if Ruin can get some gank support or not get pushed in as much as we saw on the flip side of the matchup.
Counter Logic Gaming sitting on this Ahri hover here for a while, but probably not going to be the choice. Over to Syndra, and that one's locked in for PoE.
Yeah, I think it makes sense. You know, he only has the one play on it so far this split, but, you know, it is a fairly safe blind pick. You know, we already see that some of these kind of go-tos for him are banned away from the mid lane, so should be pretty safe. Orianna would pair very well with the Jarvan, but Corki is still available, and it looks like that is likely going to be the choice here for Crown.
All right, so that means Karma moves down to the support position. I think that does make still quite a strong lane for CLG down bottom. There's, depending on if they swap that Sylas and Poppy, there's a chance they wouldn't swap the Sylas and Poppy, because you can do Poppy jungle, although that would be pretty unlikely.
Yeah, I would be really surprised.
The Poppy top lane matchup at a Jace.
Yeah, exactly. You know, Sylas definitely not a great matchup into Jace in the top lane. But the other thing we have to keep in mind is I wonder how much emphasis Optic was putting around not actually drafting strong ultimates for Sylas, because it doesn't really feel like there's super powerful ultimates here. You can steal Jace ult and become the ranged Jace. You know, Cataclysm is pretty nice, but like the Karma ult, the Corki ult, the Xayah ult, all not very effective. So really, there's really just the one big ticket ultimate in the Jarvan here for Sylas. So they are limiting some of Wiggly's playmaking power just simply through their draft.
Whatever their game plan is, they have to put all the chips on the table for it here. 2-0 for CLG means they are one game away from punching that ticket to Detroit. And in case you missed the introduction to this series in game one, remember that neither of these teams has any points from spring. FlyQuest has already secured that bottom spot in the gauntlet after Summer has officially ended, and that means that if you lose here, you're done for the rest of the split.
Just an added amount of pressure. You want to be able to go to Detroit with the victory. You want the chance at the Summer Finals, but then also that added cost of losing once again as Optic is in their first ever LCS playoffs, and CLG in the playoffs for the first time since 2017.
Here we go on to Summoner's Rift for the third and what could be final time of the day. Everybody running out of the gates as soon as they fall. And I think the first thing that catches my eye this time around, Power of Evil, Aftershock Syndra.
What about the Predator Jarvan?
There's Predator Jarvan too, but I was looking at the left side of the screen. I go left to right.
What about the Conqueror Poppy?
I almost feel like, okay, there's no way these are right.
Okay,
There's no way these are right.
Are you sure?
Nope.
There's Comet Crown, Predator Jarvan.
Yeah,
I would be
right.
really surprised. There's too many weird ones. Even PTA on Caitlyn is a little bit more atypical.
All right, as we're waiting to figure out whether or not these are right, and as we're waiting to see if CLG's invade is going to work, hold on 1 second, slammed up into the wall and pushed down into the dirt. It's first blood for CLG.
And if your mental was already shaken from the previous games, dying to a first blood invade like that is not going to feel good.
And as CLG get first blood, Riv is standing by for a sideline report with Weldon. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. I'm sorry you just missed the high five between these two. Weldon and Irene are joining me after we saw that first blood. Counterlogic Gaming is playing amazing. We didn't get a chance to talk to you after game one. What kind of was the problem that CLG was finding there that resulted in a win, but was a very tough game?
Well, we kind of gave up a lot of engage in draft, and so the guys just had to play like really defensively and try to look for, you know, those really small windows of turns, and that's what we were practicing, is being mentally resilient in scrims, and it paid off.
Awesome. And then Irene, it's been going well from here. What did you say to the guys coming off stage going into this game?
So I think our comp is very consistent at 5v5. So we need to group if we possible. So we just push out some wave side, then we just group at the mid. Then we are very strong against them comp.
Coaches, thank you very much. Best of luck in the rest of the series. Congrats on the wins. We're going to throw it back to you guys to get in a game.
Nice little flash for flash there from Meteos. So we have a confirmation they were not the correct runes as I expected. Now they have been updated, it looks like here, so this should be correct. Electrocute makes a lot more sense. Conqueror makes a lot more sense.
Now there's not as much fun stuff to talk about. We could have gone down a whole rabbit hole.
Yeah, I thought that was
we would have been wrong about it, but
it's true.
All right, so it's Fleet Footwork on Corki, as expected. Electrocute Syndra, pretty much expected. Conqueror junglers either way, normal stuff.
I do want to touch back on what Weldon and Irene said during that interview as well, as far as dealing with mental resiliency and how that actually is a very important aspect of these best of fives. In game one, when they didn't have initiation and they had fallen behind, it does take resiliency, much like it takes resiliency for Optic to come back in this game after giving up first blood. Meteos is in position if he can make a play happen.
Meteos already got one flash there in the mid lane. Now he's going to get a second. Could he get a third? Biofrost trying to turn things around. Man, CLG pulled that off well. Oh. Stixxay with double buffs now in the bottom lane. It is a 1-for-1, but they played that right.
That takes some guts from Biofrost because he actually didn't flash the initial Jarvan EQ because the whole time they were thinking, let's kill someone. He didn't flash because he wanted the short range binding so he could chain it with the trap, so he could chain it with the Caitlyn headshots, and that's exactly what they did. Even if it's 1-for-1, that is absolutely worth it to get it in a 2 versus 3.
Yeah, I mean, this is a huge win. Nice sidestep from Biofrost, then nails the binding, ignite, W. The Piltover over Peacemaker comes across. Biofrost almost lived as well. And this slow with the red buff, if he actually doesn't get hit by that Q from Big, Arrow gets chased down and killed as well. The kill went to Caitlyn instead of the Karma. Everything is so much better about that. Oh no.
What? That was just so much of Arrow's health.
That may have been even more if Stixxay wasn't a little early walking up to turret because he took a turret shot which delayed his trap placement. That could have been, you know, at least an extra auto for Stixxay and maybe not even force the recall, but he goes back for pickaxe and they try to maintain their lane control.
CLG off to a damn fine start here in this third game in a best of 5. Stixxay still with those double buffs here for a little while longer. CLG lane control is all but certain.
And you do have to know, you know, one of the more atypical masteries here is actually the Comet. So Biofrost is going for lane knowledge. This is about the additional poke, and you'll note that that first little trade pattern they had, when Arrow TP'd in, that was both his potion charges. So if he gets much more poke onto him, he will have to base, and they were going to lose multiple turret plates. They're going to lose so much CS, so he's got to be so careful under this turret.
And this does speak to being flexible as a team for COG. Last game, they were all about playing around Ruins, Kleptomancy, Camille, and the bottom lane had to just withstand. This is completely different in terms of how Stixxay and Biofrost are playing. Although the jungle actually hasn't been involved in either one. They actually withstood the 3v2 gank to maintain this dominance from the Caitlyn Morgana.
Yeah, everything going so well for their 2v2. You know, we didn't talk about where that first blood gold went either, you know, but that was also a Frostfang purchase, you know, over early on to Biofrost, so he's going to have his gold really ramped up as well. And when you're pushing his turret, oh, big.
Biofrost is just hitting binding after binding after binding in this lane that is able to punish so well. Big just barely gets away from that one.
It's a situation where he knows that they're about to walk up to either prep or last hit a minion, so he's throwing their binding where they're going to have to go to last hit that. If you dodge away, you miss the minion. If you don't, you get hit by the binding, you potentially die.
Meteos is coming back down bottom side here yet again. He'll clear out the control ward, but considering it was there, that means that's all he'll get. As we take a look up at top side, we haven't really got a chance to discuss this too much, but Ruin doesn't seem to be having a bad time at all against Dhokla's Jace.
Yeah, I really do think that sometimes in the early lane, Poppy has some threat onto Jace, especially if you have some type of vision control. He's playing the lane very well. We haven't actually seen, I don't think, jungle interference or influence on that lane yet, but credit to Ruin for having that even to slightly positive CS in that lane.
See if Dhokla can interrupt Ruin's back. Yes, he will, finding his way in the river there to stop that one from getting off in time. Bottom side, though, Stixxay and Biofrost are getting so familiar with the real estate around this Optic Gaming turret. They've already taken down a couple of plates. The gold lead growing ever steadily for CLG.
Yeah, and Meteos went down there only getting the control ward out. Stixxay still had one in his inventory. They're well stocked, so they got control of the river. Once again, it's very difficult for Optic to do anything to actually get control of that lane back. Solo laners have used teleport for lane tempo, and how much longer could this turret last? 3 plates by 7 minutes?
Yeah, I mean, just even the implication of a possible roam meant they had to give up that wave. They had to back off again.
Right, exactly. As soon as Crown tells them, hey, my laner's missing, you guys are going to have to just get out, head to the hills. Nothing good can come of this. There's nothing you can do to try to defend it. Crown going to be leaving the lane himself now, heading towards the bottom side river with Meteos to clear out some of this vision. Just try to retake a little bit of control over the bottom part of the map. Meteos still only level 5. Wiggly here level 6. But again, the Sylas doesn't have a ton of good ultimates to steal. He will be looking for Meteos to try to steal the Cataclysm away if he can. Meteos has found his way into the enemy jungle to steal that red buff now.
Pretty good invade by Meteos. All things considered, with the bottom lane going the way it has to actually make it in there. Still behind in experience, though, because he has had to spend so much time in transit.
Well, he'll pass off the blue buff now over to Crown, who will be happy to spam some more rockets. His top side, Dhokla was able to get that CS lead back pretty well for himself after he TP'd back into the lane. Ruin is still looking for this 1v1. He pops the ulti, but it won't do a whole lot here for him. Should buy him the opportunity to shove this out, get himself a decent back, picks up his shield, and Dhokla's still trading, but considering that Jace doesn't have a lot of mana left to work with, Ruin's not that afraid, and CLG says, hey, you know what? We have all this bottom side control, let's grab that Drake. Nice turn.
Yeah, speaking of Ruin, he plays lanes so aggressively, sometimes to his detriment. He's most likely, I think, of the top laners in the LCS now to either get a solo kill or be solo killed, because he'll take a lot of those 50-50 all-ins against opponent laners with the attempt of outplaying it. And when you're up 2-0 in a series, I think that's a great mentality to have, because the other guy's just been beaten twice in a row and is more likely to give you some of that ground, so to speak, when you play very aggressively.
And especially when you're coming off the back of that Camille game, you know, it's going to be in the back of Dhokla's mind, like, oh God, I can't let this happen again, right? I've got to be careful. I've got to make sure that he doesn't get these advantages. And meanwhile, you know, when you're playing that aggressive on the top side with a winning bot lane, if their jungle comes top, you can get objectives on the bottom side. Syndra is pushing up mid. Bot is winning very heavily in the 2v2. That's what allowed them to take that dragon. And if you show top for a potential gank, there's always the chance that they could then dive your bottom lane.
Speaking of bottom lanes, Biofrost, the only man left on the map without level 6. We'll see when that Morgana ultimate comes online here. Shouldn't take too much longer. He's about 90% of the way up to that 6th level. And there we go. That one's picked up as the minions are collapsed upon. We'll see if either of the junglers make a move towards there. But right now, nobody's even close. Wiggly decides to hand that buff over to Syndra, who does what only Syndra can do and just yoinks it away, slams it into the ground. Corki package won't find much. Usually early game they don't, and Crown heads back mid to farm up, shove that wave in, waiting for his opponent to come back.
Yeah, and you'll notice Biofrost already completed his Sightstone. You know, that ticked over about 20-30 seconds ago, so very fast Sightstone completion. That is one of the big advantages of actually getting an early Frostfang, is you get access to those wards earlier, which then allows you to have more safety when you are in this pushing position. You can get those deep wards out on the map, river wards, you know, next time he goes back to base, and then protect himself.
Oh, but here comes Optic. They're looking for the 2v2, but Biofrost says, here you go! Stixxay grabs himself the kill, the ace in the hole. The ace up their sleeve, CLG popping off in the bottom lane.
Continuing to dominate that laning phase, Biofrost uses the stopwatch to its best ability, and because everything showed bottom lane, Ruin just continues to get damage out onto Dhokla. No plates at all from Dokla's Jace early on in this game.
Can't stop the Poppy. Bottom side, Arrow will defend himself underneath the turret. He has help waiting nearby in case CLG gets real frisky and tries to go for the dive, but they see there's no reason to do that. They are low on mana for Stixxay, low on health for Biofrost. He'll go back to the base, start working on that arm guard. Let's take another look at the 2v2.
Here, this is one more time. Nice route from Arrow onto Stixxay, but Biofrost just goes forward onto both of them. Does not even need the binding ultimate ignite. More than enough with the ultimate coming through there from Stixxay to kill off Big. Really well played there. And yeah, and Poppy is actually taking a turret play herself. So, I mean, this is a matchup where Poppy certainly can do well in the early levels before Jace has items to armor shred and sustain through. But generally, it still results in Poppy farming pretty well and trading okay, and Jace pushing you in, right? This is the extreme opposite. When we saw the reversed matchup, Ruin was still at least having Dhokla at his turret, and you know that is really where you want to have it.
Yeah, now we have Ruin actually down in CS, but up in pressure with Poppy versus Jace. So just a different mindset than a lot of the other top players.
Yeah, I mean, you're seeing him utilize his tackle to actually tackle range minions to throw the grasp passive onto the Jace, right? So he is trying to play in his face and constantly trade him down, and I think it really is taxing sometimes to play against those players. It's like, you're not even going to go for the minion? We're both missing CS here. Just farm.
I'm going to drag you down with me. That's the Ruin attitude, but it's working here so far in this third game. Power of Evil finding himself a nice trade onto Crown, who, when he's dropped down to 60% HP like that against a mage like Syndra, man, you got to be careful. You misstep one time, you're in some trouble.
Yeah, Crown showing a lot of respect to Power of Evil as well, starting with the Hex Drinker. That will greatly delay his Trinity Force. Meanwhile, PoE has the free boots and the Ludens. But here comes Wiggly. They're looking to crash.
All right, bottom side. Big and Arrow once again going to be the target.
Oh, Misty.
Big manages to get himself away for a moment. Wiggly will likely die here. Flashes over the wall into Meteos' waiting arms.
And Crown teleports in, so 4 people invested down bottom lane for Optic in the 1-for-1.
And here we go again with the Poppy.
Use all your spells.
This is the most aggro Poppy I have ever seen in my life. He's looking for Dhokla. He's not going to find him just yet. Throws down another one of those slams and disengages.
Yeah, Ruin is just playing this so aggressively, and they're going to get the first turret on the bottom side. It was a 1-for-1 trade. They might kill him.
Arrow! See you later. Killing spree for Stixxay.
I feel bad for Arrow in this one. It's certainly been a frustrating series for him, and now bot lane is just completely spinning out of control. Look at how much farm Stixxay has. We're 13-40 into the game. He's at basically 150 CS, basically a 50 CS lead, took the turret. He's up over 2,000 gold. This is just an absurd advantage, and Caitlyn has such an easy time, you know, really making good on those leads because she has so much range.
Yeah, Stixxay and Biofrost really taking control of this game. I don't even really think Wiggly has too much to say about this. This has been 2v2 or 2v3 in a lot of situations. PoE's got to find a way out of this, and he's fine.
Yep, he had Flash, even if he didn't have backup coming, but with Biofrost and Stixxay on his heels, he knows that there's no way Optic chases that any further.
Yeah, they're probably going to try and look towards this Drake as well. Optic looks like they might be trying to force something, knowing that they're just getting poked out over and over by this Caitlyn, but it's just gonna make it from bad to worse.
Yeah, problem is you don't force something onto a Caitlyn team around a neutral objective.
I mean, Biofrost is actually closing in on gold with Crown. He's 400 gold behind the mid laner as the support. He almost has a Zhonya's. He's actually going to have a Zhonya's on base. He will have his first completed item before the opposing mid laner.
He has more gold than his top laner. He's got more gold than Ruin, who's been playing aggressively the whole game. Yeah, Biofrost and Stixxay
He is fed.
looking to make their way into semifinals with a dominating performance. They were both second team on the All-Pro voting this split, so getting the respect of a dominant bottom lane as well and really making it work here in this game.
I mean, Biofrost was who I saw as the catalyst for this team when they first started popping off. Remember, CLG has been in a pretty bad spot for a couple of years now. They haven't been in playoffs for a while. They were struggling with seemingly everything. And in this split, things changed. And Biofrost and Stixxay have been one of the huge catalysts. Remember, back in Spring Split, this was not a bottom lane that people were like, wow, what the hell are these guys doing? Because it is impressive. But now here in Summer, they're popping off.
7 wins, 11 losses. Every split prior to this one, the Biofrost was on CLG. Even though it was a CLG curse, sometimes Biofrost might have thought it was himself being cursed. And Stixxay as well, at one point, was the replacement to Doublelift, is the eldest member of this CLG team, actually the team leader all time for kills in playoffs, trying to have a big performance.
Yeah, and Stixxay is the only player on CLG that was in playoffs last time CLG was in playoffs, right? Like, he's the only guy remaining from that last CLG roster. You know, they have had this resurgence, and yeah, Ruin came in this split, but it hasn't just been about the improvements that Ruin has brought. It's been about Stixxay and Biofrost really stepping up, as you guys were mentioning, and Wiggly, his rapid improvement. You know, we heard earlier in the split, Stixxay talking about how fast he got good, and it really has been a sight to see.
All right, Ruin's gonna find himself in a 1v2. He'll slam Meteos up against his own wall. He'll knock Dhokla away, and then he says, nope, I'm not running, I'm the Poppy. And he keeps on fighting and forces Optic to retreat.
Oh, and they went for that fight. I think, okay, surely he at least flashes, right? But no, he stalls enough, knocks Dhokla out. Biofrost is also there to save the day, and now they can just move that Caitlyn pressure top to get the third turret before 17 minutes.
CLG is looking to make this the fastest game of the series so far. All 3 outer turrets dismantled. Shelly now on the menu. Wiggly putting the work in on that one. Shouldn't need too much more time to get rid of it, especially not with Stixxay showing up. But of course, we'll see if they can get much. They have to aim at those tier 2s. Power of Evil here on the bottom side. Brown looking to find the plays. Power of Evil with a fast feed. Dog is away again. The man's got his dancing shoes on.
Crown really wanted that. They need something, and Ruin is now behind him. Crown is going to get taken out.
Here comes the Poppy. Dun, 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 dun. Power of Evil takes the kill.
PoE definitely tempting fate a bit by picking up that kill. Actually means Ruin doesn't get the assist gold either, but it's got to feel good just for the mano-a-mano PoE versus Crown dodging all the skill shots to eventually get the kill.
Mano-a-mano plus flanking Poppy.
Yeah, no, 1v1, solo kill.
Don't worry about the world.
Never a fair fight, Jack.
Poppy.
Never a fair fight.
The Poppy didn't matter there. No damage, doesn't count, but top side, Wiggly's going after Dhokla here, and a chase with no mana is not exactly a match for a Silas. There comes the accelerated shock blast, but Dhokla's like, nope, I'm wise to these tricks, steps out of the way, and that won't go any further.
6,000 gold and the Mountain Drake. It's also going to transition into Baron, but remember, they also have the Rift Herald, so I think they're either just going to use it right now top lane. Yep, there it is. Since they chucked out Dhokla to get this second turret.
Well, here goes Power of Evil, making sure he's around to continue helping Shelly take this down. Meanwhile, Biofrost and Wiggly are just waiting here in the brushes to the south of that turret. In case anybody tried to rotate up, they were going to stop them. But instead, they'll take down a tier 2 top, they'll take down a tier 2 mid. Shelly's a little bit distracted bonking these minions, but she's about to get another charge off if nobody stops it.
Yeah.
Everybody from Optic is just not ready to defend this right now. And with Caitlyn and Karma being here as well, that's a tier 3 turret down before 19 minutes. Stixxay's on the front line. Black Shield keeping him safe. And once again, Poppy doing what she does, getting rid of unwanted problems.
They're just taking so many towers. 6 towers pre-20 minutes is ridiculous. And they are in such an incredible position to close out this game here. Stixxay is sitting on 9,000 gold, sitting 3,200 ahead of Arrow. Like that is absurd. That is so far ahead. Arrow's never gonna really have any relevance in this game. I mean, Biofrost has more gold than he does.
Yeah, Stixxay is a full big ticket item up over his opponent, which is pretty incredible when you consider the fact that last game, it was CLG who got 2v2 killed for the first blood. It was CLG who were losing the bottom lane and gave Optic their potential only win condition. Now they're saying, oh no, we're gonna do this our way as Power of Evil gets dove Meteos' way, a shutdown for Optic Gaming.
Crown brings his friend this time, able to get the dive, but let's see what COD can do.
Oh, another one. Just dial 1-800-BINDING and Biofrost makes them happen time and again.
I like that. That was good. It's the binding. They get the kill. Crown will take a tower down on the bottom side, but CLG have full control of the map right now. Going to be able to be taking away camps in the top side jungle up here as Wiggly is doing it, and they're really poised to do whatever they want to close out this game.
Yeah, progression of this series was Optic coming out with the sneak Baron at 20 minutes in game 1, eventually getting 4 Barons, 4 Drakes, an Elder on top of it, and not quite being able to close. During that game, when there are still so many unknowns in this series, you think, hey, this could be real close. Stixxay, though, might get caught out here.
Meteos going after Stixxay. He made sure he took an extra half second there when he stood by the wall. You saw it to make sure the flash would give him away to safety.
Here.
But Optic is not done. They really want this Caitlyn. Meteos is going to tank the turret as long as he possibly can. Shutdown goes over to Optic. They'll pick up a second onto Power of Evil. They've lost big for it, but it's still a big win for Optic.
Yeah, that's a nice play from Optic at a time where they really needed something. Yeah. They will commit to this. They're going to lose a tower or at least some health on this bottom side, but I still think it's a worthwhile play. You have to be aggressive. You can't just sit back and let them bleed you out.
Yeah, compared to how the series had been going with just every game getting worse for Optic and then being down 7,000 gold, the 2 plays they've made, one on the bottom side and this on the top side, do keep them alive. They get Stixxay's flash and then they continue to pile on to get him, and because Power of Evil came to save him, he ends up falling as well, even if it's a 2-for-1. And considering the cost of that was only a little bit of damage on a side turret, it's almost miraculous that they didn't lose more map pressure for committing everyone to that Stixxay play top lane. I'm sure in VOD's review for COG, they might even say, how did we let the game get into a point where Optic could even make these plays? Because it's so unexpected with that big of a gold lead, but Optic does find a way to stay alive in this game. 5,000 gold at 22 minutes.
Well, Stixxay's got himself 3 crit items online here for the Caitlyn. Very scary with Rapid Fire and Static Shiv together. Wiggly about to walk up towards Meteos here. They were expecting someone to be in the brush, but Meteos gets himself away.
That was almost so sick from Biofrost. Anticipated where the flagging drag would go, but was just short. If you hit that, that could be a kill on the jungler and potentially a Baron. That would have been a massive pick. But Optic has slowed down the game a little bit. Crown has taken down now top tier 1, bottom tier 1 with his split push. They got a couple kills. They have scraped their way back a little bit closer. CLG certainly still by far in the driver's seat here, but we have to see them continue to push the pace of the game, because if you allow the gold lead to stagnate, Optic will have their chances.
Yep, Corki could scale up. Zai as well could start catching up to Stixxay, even though he's not even close.
It's a long road.
Yeah, here they go, though, just trying to get the outer 6 down. They have the people, so they should be able to do it with no contest.
Yep, don't even need to sit down the trap line here just yet, and they're going to keep pushing until Optic responds to it with an appropriate amount of manpower. Wiggly's clearing out the jungle camps as he makes his way towards the rest of his team, and this is where difficulties will start. Even when you're really far ahead, it can be difficult to break that inhibitor line, except, oh wait, what's that? The inhibitor line was broken at 19 minutes. Well, hot dog. Let's see what they can find here in the mid lane. CLG going to continue that pressure. Optic Gaming have to find something to grab onto, some way to hold on to this game.
Yeah, and the threat through these turrets is so great, because if they do just land that one binding, it's going to be actually anyone else but Jarvan's full health bar as they knock him out and get a bunch of damage out onto this turret.
Well, there were a couple auto attacks and spells fired off into Ruin here, but now he's not in any danger whatsoever. Crown goes on a suicide mission, barely gets himself away. Optic tries to find their angle, but just can't do it.
They at least do push them back and defend the inhibitor tower, though. But Baron on the map here, is becoming more and more of a target as they're getting tankier and tankier. The Poppy is getting to the point where she's going to be able to hold that pretty easily, and they can look to set up around that Baron area. Optic does have some defensive vision, on that side of the map, trying to kind of protect themselves, just in this little quadrant. But really, if CLG can move up into this area and start to get some vision down, they can pull Optic into them and utilize the Caitlyn traps to try to force them to engage through that.
Yeah, and I think Meteos has to play so well here. He is the only person who can control vision, because additionally, since he has the most health, he also has the Jarvan EQ, which if he's casting it at the right time, can still move through a Dark Binding. So he's the one that needs to get vision, and he needs to escape catches like this.
And not get smacked up against the wall. Biofrost has him with a burn, but at the same time, Optic critically get one in trade. Power of Evil out of the picture. Pretty important here. Stixxay also eating a ton of damage, and Ruin has finally gone too far. Forced to flash out defensively. A nice route onto Big. Ace in the hole will be denied as Ruin takes the kill with a hammer shock.
Little ring around the rosy there. Ruin runs all the way around the red buff back in, and they're able to take down Big. But it was a good pick onto Power of Evil. Optic are taking their swings where they can find them. They're trying to fight back into this game, and the pick on Meteos, again, could have been Baron if it weren't for a nice little trade kill from Optic. But again, here we have CLG just straight up starting the Baron.
Arrow didn't reset, though, so he is here to at least see it. Meteos, though, as he died, can't make it first smite.
CLG have everybody here. They're ready to go. Baron down to about 1,500, and it is secured by the Silas. Wiggly on point to make sure they don't give that one away. Dhokla forced to flash away from Stixxay's red buff, and now CLG are ready to go. 5 men with Baron buffs. Everybody's regrouping, and it's time for a big push.
And that could very well be the death knell of Optic in this series. With that Baron buff, with the Caitlyn to siege, and this huge gold lead, CLG should be able to march down the map and deal crippling damage to Optic space.
Yeah, watching this fight one more time, Meteos is actually on the way to set up this pick onto Power of Evil, so the bottom left of your screen, you actually see Crown and Big on that control ward, but Meteos can't get out fast enough with his EQ. And this is actually where Optic saw an opportunity to kind of turn the game around. It's just Ruin is so darn tanky that he's able to flash to the side, and Big doesn't realize there's a trap right there. It's kind of hidden behind his own control ward, and he's so squishy once he steps on that trap.
Yeah, I mean, it's just ridiculous that they couldn't actually take Ruin down there. It shows how strong he is at this point in the game. He just ran all the way around the red buff to be involved, and Dhokla is building for this 1v1. You can see, he has gone Bladed Rune King, Cleaver, Lord Dominix. This is straight up to try to fight this Poppy, but Ruin really has been getting more done, and here comes CLG looking to siege up with this Baron on the bottom side.
CLG not even concerned about the exposed mid lane inhibitor. The initiation from Optic makes an attempt on Stixxay, but they won't be able to find him, and Arrow is slam dunk before he can ult or flash. Ace in the hole makes its way in, Crown is out, and CLG are on the victory march.
2 down, both carries, 2 inhibitors coming up, and CLG looking to make it a 3-0 and punch their ticket to the semifinals.
There comes your initiation. Syndra starting things off with a scat of the week. There comes your juggle. There goes Optic Gaming. Stixxay's got a double kill. The Nexus turrets will fall to the might of CLG. They're just playing with their food at this point. Big, he'll try to stay alive underneath the fountain. It has been a long time coming, but CLG are headed to the semifinals.
And what a series it was. CLG clean sweep over Optic. Optic really made him work for it in the first game. CLG having to come back in that one, but games 2, games 3 were all CLG all the time, it felt like. They really ran Optic over.
And thinking about how CLG got here, they were so close to getting the playoff bye. There was that fear in the back of CLG fans' heads that maybe we won't get the bye and then we could lose to Optic and then we won't make regional qualifiers. That's gone now, right? It's hopeful, looking towards the next round, looking towards trying to win the split or go to Worlds. And the way in which they won this series also speaks towards continual improvement.
Right, and considering in the next round you play either Team Liquid or Cloud9, you wanted to make this win look as clean as possible. Yes, game 1 was a little bit rough, but Weldon even said they addressed the fact that, yes, they drafted bad initiation tools, and that's why. Games 2 and 3 looked really clean, and this is a team I am excited to see in semifinals.
Yeah, me too. I think they're going to be a very tough opponent for whoever awaits them. You know, TL does have the choice. I cannot really see a world in which TL would not choose Clutch. I think we're very likely going to be in for CLG versus Cloud9, and that was the tiebreaker for the bye. They will have a chance to get their revenge.
Redemption story potential there for CLG, but man, how cool must it feel for this team that, as we said, has been on the struggle bus for the last couple of years after being one of the big North American orgs. But since way back in the day, the start of competitive League of Legends, they've been in that trench for so long now, but they're back up, they're fighting, and damn, they look strong.
The long road forward, man. It's just so much, especially for Biofrost, who had been so dominant when he joined the league on TSM, really knew nothing but winning, to then kind of, felt like he kind of became the face of CLG when he became that, when he started on support for that team. And we have to just look at the other side, the end of the road for Optic, Arrow as well. Tough series, played so well in so much of that game too, but also the critical picks on Ezreal in game 1, having to lane against that Caitlyn Morg at the end of game 3. You got the thrill of victory on CLG, and you have the agony defeat on Optic. That's sports, and that's one of the reasons I love to watch.
It absolutely is. Two sides of that same coin, but for Optic Gaming, you still got to be proud of making it to playoffs here for the first time. They got to the quarterfinals. That in and of itself is an achievement. They can only continue to improve from here, you would expect, with this experience. As Zabutin said, this is a squad that didn't have that playoffs experience, playing in the best of fives, experiencing that different environment in a live game setting as opposed to just a scrim. Now they've kind of got a feel for that. For some of these players that haven't got to do that yet on the LCS stage, that's pretty big.
Yeah, you know, Big and Dhokla, you're going to get some experience with them. You know, obviously a lot of experience between Meteos and Arrow and Crown.
Right.
But, you know, certainly, you know, it is really, really valuable for all of these guys to be gaining as much experience as possible. And we have seen improvement throughout Optic, which is something they can build upon.
Well, as CLG managed to grab themselves an impressive 3-0 victory, Avli is standing by with their support and mid laner.
Thanks, Flowers. Biofrost, Power of Evil, congratulations on the victorious win for CLG. PoE, I want to come to you first and ask just how does it feel to take this win? Because not only did you 3-0 Optic, your former team, that you just weren't able to end up carrying into playoffs. So how does it feel to take down this team?
Well, I really like all of the Optic squad still, and we spoke a little bit before the match, and it was kind of sad that we faced the first team in playoffs, but I feel like after the first game, I don't know how we won with this draft. I'm really happy about it that we like turned it around and got the win. And I feel like after that, we just had the momentum and we just kept it going because I feel like all of us are veterans and I feel like we have so much experience on our back that like I feel like it wasn't that hard afterwards.
And I saw you give hugs to almost every single player on the line. Were there any exchanges that you had before or after the game?
Well, I just told them that like they shouldn't be too upset about it. I feel like we are still like friends in Optic, and even between the games we spoke a little bit, and I think Arrow came to me after the 2-0 and was like, we're gonna make it 2-1, like we're gonna make you fight for it, and it was really fun. It was really cute. Viral fun. Viral fun, definitely.
Oh, gosh. Well, Biofrost, okay, let's come to you next because it's been, what, 2 years since you were last in playoffs, and now here you make your appearance in quarterfinals and have this dominating victory. So what does this all really mean to you?
Feels great. I get to keep my 100% playoff win rate. But yeah, it does mean a lot because when you play like really poorly or like when you're not doing well as a team for a while, like it's been 3 splits, you start to doubt yourself. So I'm really happy that we can make it this time around, and I think we got a good squad.
Well, let's talk about the series itself, because I just want to ask about your progression of confidence, because in game 1, super long, looked like it was going to Optic. Game 2, the game really started to look like it was yours. And in game 3, you started off with a level 1 invade. So just tell me a little bit about that.
Well, I feel like we didn't need to show too much variety in the series because we just 3-0'd them, but I feel like we definitely showed some strategies like the level 1 invade or I feel like as well, like the level 1, I feel like, the first game where we just fought until the end, I feel like we just kept reminding ourselves, okay, give up the Baron, it's the 4th Baron, just give it up again. Give it up again, we have Azir, and maybe they will step up, and then Rexer can flash on someone. So we have every 5 minutes, a small winning condition. So we just spoke about these things, and we actually made it work. So I feel like it shows that we're like a really strong team.
And I noticed that you said you showed off some strategies. Does that mean that there are still some secret strategies ready for the rest of playoffs?
Well, definitely. Like, we didn't need to show too much today, so that's really good for us.
Biofrost, looking at you, it seemed like in the last game you were hitting almost every single binding as Morgana. So what really flipped the switch on for you and Stixxay in the bot lane in this series?
Was definitely tired of getting camped in bot and playing these really bad matchups. So we finally got a good situation for us, and I'm glad that we were able to show it. We're pretty confident in like lane dominant champions, so it really worked out for us.
All right, and I just got news. You guys are going to hear it first. Team Liquid chose Clutch Gaming as their semifinal opponents, which means that you are going to be taking on Cloud9. So, gentlemen, first reactions.
Well, for me, I feel like that's a little bit more annoying. I think Cloud9's mid jungle is really strong, and it's just more annoying for me.
Obviously, I think that TL is probably the better team. They've gotten first, they have MSI experience. So playing against Cloud9 is definitely easier, but that's not to say that they're still a really strong team. And in the tiebreaker, we just absolutely got decimated. But I think that's probably because of draft and we had some bad communication in the game. So I think it'll be much closer this time around.
And a lot of people were saying, this is mainly Twitter and Reddit, but people were saying, you know what, I wonder if Biofrost's playoff success is based off of his performance or just Doublelift, his lane partner. So are you going to prove them wrong in the semifinal and potentially meet up against Team Liquid in the finals?
No, it's just Doublelift.
Vincent, confidence.
I'm just joking. I'm okay. Yeah.
It's okay. All right, well, gentlemen, any last words to the fans before you start your week of preparation?
Well, I'm happy for everyone who came out here, supported us today, and just over the last couple of weeks, I think we were all a little bit sad that we didn't make it to semifinals, but just made it 3-0 today, and now we're back there.
Words of confidence, Vincent.
Let's go.
Let's go, team.
Let's go.
Guys, once again, congratulations on the win. And for more on the game, let's hear from the State Farm Analyst Desk.
Thank you, Avali. Let's go.
The trail off Let's Go
to Detroit. Are you inspired now to go play some League of Legends? No. In all honesty, that was a smash for CLG, and the series got progressively more dominant for them after that first game where Power of Evil kind of sided. They were hanging in by a thread with a 5-minute cooldown win condition of the Rek'Sai flash, which would come up big. But this third and final game here was much more the look that we expect out of CLG with the strong button.
I mean, this is the kind of stomp that means that we might not even get to see Optic get to book scrims against CLG for a little while. It really was so one-sided because the lane dominance from the early get-go, the approach to the level 1 as well, finding an invade, and then it just felt like Optic was asphyxiated. They couldn't do anything.
I mean, they're definitely not going to be scrimming for a while because Optic is out completely. So
this was such an unlucky invade because Big barely missed this, and Arrow's positioning barely missed it until they're right on top of him. Like, I thought, God, this wouldn't not happen like 9 out of 10 scrims, like 19 out of 20 scrims, but it still did.
This is such a nice sidestep from Biofrost to actually get the return kill, because otherwise this is really just you flash out, okay, the jungler ganked you, but you turn the gank, and you get double buffs to the Caitlyn, it's over. The lane is done.
3v2 situation, and then, yes, as you mentioned, it's over from that point forward. Stixxay would become an absolute monster on the Caitlyn. With the early gold lead, the turret pushing comes all that much easier.
And Arrow he just walks back up, thinks he's safe, and Stixxay walks up and just kills him.
He has IE at this point, right?
Yeah.
It's like IE to a few long swords or maybe even a VF sword.
This is like a very classic Caitlyn game. Like when you get choked out by Caitlyn, you lose your bot tower, rotates top, lose your top tower, mid tower, and then it's just over. All your towers are gone. They Rift Herald top for the second tower, and it just felt like CLG had an enormous lead. They took a 19-minute inhib. Tower inhib.
Yeah, it was just the
inhib tower. The inhib tower mid.
And it was just
came down pre-19 minutes.
Yeah, it was like, Optic kind of got their back broken off basically that level 1 invade and the Meteos death. Even on the top side of the map, where they should have had their priority with the Jace and the Poppy, still just really couldn't get anything going. I think, Rune had a massive 4%, even took a couple turret plates by himself.
Yeah, he had almost 2 turret plates, like literally 1 auto away from getting the second one before the 14-minute mark. And as you mentioned, he was largely even in CS with what seemed like an advantageous forward percentage against the counter matchup of the Jace.
Yeah, and it's not something that Optic usually finds leads on, putting Dhokla in the carry as well. So you know that if that's where they are having to fall back to get anything in this game, something has gone wrong. It really is like, it did not come together for Optic at the very last minute. They fell apart, but I cannot wait to see CLG against Cloud9.
I know. They were saying that, of course, TL is the scarier team of the bunch, but knowing that they'll go up against C9, not an easy task, but definitely feel like they are capable of beating that squad. Citing the tiebreaker loss, saying more draft and communication errors that resulted in that loss. But in talking about this victory here today, to sweep their way to the semifinals, every player needed to step up. And when it came to player of the series, that accolade is going to go to the mid laner, Power of Evil.
This felt to me like one of the closest player of the series you ever had to give out. Every single game, a different member of CLG was the primary carry. It was Wiggly in game 1 with the Flash Rek'Sai and berries. It was Power of Evil and Rune in game 2 having all the big plays.
Azir and Camille, yeah.
Yeah, and in game 3, it's the bot lane. So, you could take your pick of any game depending on which one you wanted. PoE, we felt like, was the most consistent player throughout the series, and that's why we ended up giving it to him.
And I think CLG just shows the traits of a good team. Anyone on their team can carry. I said that at the very start of the cast, but you guys can hear me. I said it to these other analysts, I was like, hey, CLG right now is kind of what you expect TSM historically to be at the end of the season. Near playoffs, like TSM kind of comes together, all their pieces start working together and they gel together like a machine. That didn't happen this season, but you know what happened for? CLG. And CLG finally on the rise after a year or 2 bad years, they're finally back.
And to your point, Mark, while we could acknowledge any of the 5 members on CLG, the one that we will give an additional nod to behind Power of Evil is Wiggly. In his first LCS playoff performance, gets the 3-0 and is very crucial in that first game turnaround, which really kickstarted momentum.
And that's just a story of CLG the whole split long. We look at the team and think, okay, who should really be the MVP, the standout? But so many members continue to step up, and that's what reaffirms in us that it's a legit team, that CLG is actually a good team. Every single member is carrying their own weight. And when you thought, oh, maybe Styx maybe it's not him, right? He's struggling in the first 2 games. Suddenly he turns it around in the bottom lane. Same thing with Biofrost, PoE, Ruin, and Wiggly. Like, this is an actual team that doesn't seem to have a weak point to exploit. And so a team to beat them has to come up with a better plan than finding whatever isn't working for CLG.
They pick up each other's slack, too, which is really what you want to see out of a team. When the bot lane is getting smashed by this Draven, like, don't worry. You have Rune and PoE
100 CS lead on the Camille top lane, without a doubt. It's great to see that from CLG. And we'll be back to talk about this a little bit more, but for more on his first quarterfinal win in the LCS, let's send it over to Riv to hear from CLG's jungler.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. And I do kind of want to start right there. Wiggly, what Dash was saying is that first quarterfinal matchup now in the LCS. It's been a long year, but improvement throughout. What were your expectations coming into this playoff match?
Well, I think all of our expectations were that we were going to win, honestly. But obviously getting 3-0 is always like a nice surprise. But I guess for me, it wasn't really a big surprise. But I guess it's just good to get the 3-0, obviously. But yeah, those were our expectations.
I'm sure it surprised a few. It's been kind of turmoil back and forth with CLG being able to make it into the later part of the season, but something was different about the atmosphere throughout the year. A lot more fun, smiling faces, even throughout this 3-0. What has kind of changed for the CLG atmosphere that's allowed this?
Well, we win now, so I guess winning kind of fixes everything in a way. When you're a better team, it's just easier to have fun with your teammates, I think. And obviously, like, outside of the game, everyone gets along really well, too, so that helps. But the biggest thing is we're just winning, and we're a good team, so, yeah. It's easy to have fun.
All right, Wiggly, next one's about you. We've heard a few of the teammates that you have talking about your maturity and how that has leveled up so much throughout the season. Kind of from your point of view, what has that growth been, and what's different for you?
I think that I just try to model my game, like, behind other good junglers, and I just tried to look at what other people are doing and what things I struggled with last split. And yeah, it's just with the help of the coaching staff and my teammates, I think that I just kind of figured out some of the things that I was struggling with last split, and you know, sometimes it just takes time to get used to the environment, playing on stage, your teammates, everything as a jungler. So I think that was really helpful for me.
Well, it seems like everything's coming together to get that past result CLG has found in the finals. Final question for you. It has been Cloud9 that you are going up against. We just found out you get a little bit of revenge for that bye tie. How do you feel about the matchup?
I think that it'll be a really fun match to watch. Our last game with them didn't really go how we planned. It was kind of a really sad way to end the split, but I don't think the games are going to look like that. I think that was kind of a one-off type of game, so I think it's going to be a really close series. It should be fun.
Wiggly, thank you so much for your time. Best of luck moving forward, and best of luck to all of the CLG fans who are hoping we're going to throw back to the State Farm analyst desk to break down the rest of the day.
Thank you, Riv, and congratulations again, Wiggly, on your first quarterfinal win here in the LCS. Citing that a lot of his improvement was modeled off of other good junglers. I would be very curious, one, to know who he modeled himself after. But beyond that, let's acknowledge. Oh, are you really? You just, oh my God. Get off of my desk. I was going to say, because really what's interesting to me is that he is about to go into one of the toughest jungle matchups of his career in Svenskeren, Cloud9 semifinal matchup. That's going to be a big one with all of our final teams competing at the Little Caesars Arena. We're locked into the top four. Let's go ahead and take a look at the bigger picture for the road to Detroit, presented by Rocket Mortgage. As we pull up the bracket, we've got Cloud9 versus Counterlogic Gaming, as just stated, and Team Liquid versus Clutch on the other side of the bracket. Let's talk first about CLG and Cloud9.
Oh, baby. PoE talked about it. He said, it's not going to be a fun series for me. He knows the jungler tension is coming mid. He knows Nisqy loves to play aggressive. And for me, that's really the crux of this matchup. You have the lowest deaths in the league mid laner, and PoE going up the most kills in the league mid laner. And it's about, can PoE neutralize him? That's where I think this matchup really lies.
I mean, I think a big part of it is that a lot of the time, CLG does like to fall back on the Oriannas in the mid lane, a little bit of a slower pace, whereas Cloud9 has shown that not only do they bust out innovative picks against very standard meta, like the Veigar that we saw out of Nisqy, and even going to the Yasuos, like, they will punish what you are going to bring out that you have shown the entire season long. So CLG better be ready for Cloud9 to bring a lot of fire in the draft.
I'm just excited to watch Svenskeren play. He's honestly played phenomenally. Like, he's, if not the front runner, like one of the front runners for MVP candidate of the season.
Definitely one of the front runners.
And he's earned it in all the games that I've seen. Like, this guy is a premier playmaker, and honestly, I'm just really excited to see him play.
And I think what's so intriguing, too, to your point, Mark, about the mid lane and needing to either neutralize Nisqy and or win that matchup, for CLG, what they have at least shown us here today, and we've already talked about it, is the ability for, hey, if that mid lane matchup isn't going to be winnable for Power of Evil, it doesn't have to be. We can find our wins in the other lanes as long as Power of Evil can contain or minimize the effect that Nisqy has on the map.
Equally true for C9, though. Last time it was Sneaky and Zeyzal dumpstering CLG's bot lane. Licorice is a god. So, like, both teams have so many threats.
Yeah, I especially saw the last game recently, and I was like, wow, this bot lane turned into a disaster. They got 4-man dove, and then it was 20 CS deficit at like 4 minutes.
Well, that's where you talk importance of draft then, too, right? And securing the matchups. Reaper has long been touted as one of the more draft-focused and draft-intelligent coaches throughout the LCS.
I mean, there are some times.
Occasionally drops the ball. You always, drop the ball.
But so can every single team.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not something new.
All right, what about the other side of things? We're talking about the 1 seed in Team Liquid, looking to do what no other team has done before and put 4 titles together in a row. They have to go through Clutch to get that shot in the finals.
It honestly looks like it would have to be a Cinderella story for Clutch Gaming to win this, because you're up against, obviously, the toughest opponent in the entire league. And yes, there have been improving, but it looked like towards Game 4 yesterday that TSM actually could have given them a run for their money. And I don't think that barely being able to, or at least handedly beating that TSM, if it wasn't a complete stomp, is good enough to beat TL.
They should be used to the analyst desk doubting them, and there's going to be a lot more doubt for Clutch Gaming. I don't think there's a way that they beat TL, but
that's the reality, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so then what? You're really good at the thought experiments because these two aren't. So do the mental gymnastics for me, Scar. How does Clutch beat Team Liquid?
Oh, this is not. You don't
want it? No?
I am not a specialist.
You're not flexible enough in the brain for this
Clutch
one?
Gaming. I assumed they were going to make some statements. I was ready to play. I was ready to play the reverse here.
I live in reality. Money is more valuable than time.
So, if anything, You got the picks from DeMonte and Henry that are very new, right? You have the Kiana, the Rumbles that are really annoying to ban in the first rotation for Team Liquid because champions like Yuumi take a little bit higher priority. And so if the draft goes their way, they are able to maybe execute a few comps that gets them 1 or 2 wins, and then they will always have to fall back on Cody Sun. So can Cody Sun outperform Doublelift?
Oh boy.
That is actually how they will
Tall
have to
order.
win, which is crazy, which is why we don't think Clutch can win.
I don't even think it's like an AD
it is.
matchup, you know? Like, I talked about Sven as like one of the frontrunners for MVP, but for me, it's just always been Core. When I watch Core play, I'm like, this guy's a god. Like, literally, like,
he's a
lot of times, like,
god.
I don't learn that much from watching specific games. When I watch Core play support, I feel like my brain is expanding. Like, this guy plays so well every game. He's legit hardcore carrying his team in ways that, like, people aren't even noticing. Like, great movement with a jungler, great vision control all across the map. He's always there at the right time. And, like, you know, it's been a long time since Doublelift had a support that he felt like he was, like, a world-class level with. And now, like, that he has that support, there's just a monstrous spot lane. I don't know what to say.
No doubt that Core JJ is a phenomenal bot lane, or support rather, to Doublelift's bot lane. If your brain's expanding, though, you might want to see a doctor about that one. All right, thank you very much, Scar, for joining us here today to break down this very quick and dominant 3-0 from CLG. But now for myself, the Cashers, the entire live broadcast crew, thank you for watching, and we'll see you next weekend for the semifinals. Good night.
In any of these tense matches, the people who really want it are the ones that rise to the occasion.
CLG hasn't been to playoffs in the last 2 years. Optic never been to playoffs. If they lose here, their season is over, so tons on the line.
Top side, though, it is Ruin. So very close to dead. Having a flash away, but the follow-up is there, and first blood goes over to Medio.
Watch Sivir. She's caught. Help. I'm looking at
Ivy. I need help on Sarah. I need help. I got him.
I don't think so. Watch out.
Oh, there they go. Whipley's going in. The flash over the wall to shut down Arrow, and that's the initiation CLG needed.
Go. I got him. Can someone end?
CLG is collapsing.
CLG might
power
end the game.
gotta be
CLG's pushing me.
They have to look out here.
That's it.
City's gonna win. CLG are on the victory mark.
If you play Sivir and you have the pizza delivery skin, like Snacky's with you, like for sure.
Yeah, I actually have the power of Snacky.
Do it for Sneaky.
Ruin's gonna be in some trouble here. Issues the Hextech ultimatum. The Whirling Death came in, but the Stranglethorns will find their victims. It's a double kill for Power of Evil.
CLG have full control of the map. They are running this game.
We gotta get out here.
Air splash. Nice, let's go.
Arrow's on the run, Crown is down, and that is it.
Oh shit, I'm so fat.
CLG are on match point versus Optic Gaming. They're looking for the 2v2, but Biofrost says, here you go! Stixay grabs himself the kill, the ace in the hole.
Don't. I got mid-wave.
Don't.
Oh my god. Don't!
Syndra starting things off with a scat of the week. There comes your juggle. There goes Optic Gaming. It has been a long time coming, but CLG are headed to the semifinal.